everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Murray. Thanks for joining me. Happy Friday. It is the end of the week. Thank Goddess. Hopefully you guys are doing well. We're going to be doing live readings on the channel this evening. Do me a favor, and if you can see me, please give me a thumbs up and like the stream. It really helps the algorithm. It lets everybody on YouTube know that we're going live and we're doing readings. I would appreciate it. And while you're looking down there, make sure you're subscribed. If you're not, please click the button below and subscribe to the channel. It's so helpful. That way you know when we have videos coming out. We've got videos coming out every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and live on Friday. But you already know that because you're hanging out with me. We're going to be doing live astrology readings. We're going to be casting charts and people are going to be asking questions, and I'm going to be assessing what they've got going on with their transits live. If you'd like to get a reading, please do. This is how you're going to do it. There's a QR code somewhere over here. You can scan that. It's going to take you to my PayPal where you can make a donation. I do need information in the memo, so please, 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 for the sake of time, it really is helpful. Please include your first name, your time, date, location of birth. Please spell out the month and put the AM, PM for me, along with your question. So we're requesting everybody ask one specific question. Otherwise, I'm going to talk to you about how this new moon in Cancer is impacting you personally. We've got a new moon that's coming up here at the beginning of this next week. The nodes are changing signs, so just giving you guys some ideas of some things you can ask about. This is going to be really important because the North Node's moving into Aries, the South Node's moving into Libra. So if you happen to be one of those two signs, it's definitely impactful for you as well as the rest of the cardinal signs. Venus retrograde is going to be starting in this next week as well in the sign of Leo. And we've got Pluto square the node. So there's lots of stuff going on. If you have questions about a transit in your natal chart, specific timing, or questions about an aspect in your natal chart, now would be a good time to make a donation and I'll take a look at what you got going on. We always have a lot of people also in the live reading, so I appreciate your guys' patience. If I'm not responding right away, it's because I'm reading the chart, but I will kind of go in and out of the chat. We also have somebody who's helping moderate the chat as well. So those of you guys who are new, we're doing readings by donation. So when you donate, you are going to go into the queue. I will let you guys know which people are coming up. And then when I call your name, I'm going to read your question out loud, and I'm going to cast your chart for you. I'm a Western astrologer, so I focus on taking a look at Western transits. And I'm excited to get into this because we have a whole list of people. But before I get into that, I just want to say a big thank you to all of my members. Not many people know that I do have memberships on the channel, which allows you guys to donate monthly and make it possible for me to be a full-time content creator. You guys make it possible for me to create these long format videos because your guys' subscriptions increases the viewage on my channel. It allows me to have the time to create this content and keep providing all of this stuff for you guys pretty much for free. But if you appreciate and you get any goodness out of my horoscopes or any of the other content I'm putting out, please consider joining one of my 3 membership levels because it helps me continue to do what I'm doing. With that being said, I want to say thank you to all of my level 2 and 3 subscribers. If you happen to be a level 3 and you'd like to tap in and get your monthly reading, let me know. All level 3 memberships come with a reading once a month. So it's embedded in your donation and you can choose if you want tarot or astrology. And we always take our level 3 people first, so you guys don't have to wait. So that's the benefit of joining memberships. For about the same price of actually getting a reading, you can support me monthly. And I know we have a couple people. So I saw Emma popped in there. I also owe a reading to Catherine Murray. So Catherine, if you're watching this, I'm going to be doing your reading first. And then I will take Emma. But if there's any level 3 people who are here, please let me know. I will add you onto my list. Just saying hello to everyone. Thank you guys for joining. What's up, Sarah? Hey, Ray. Hey, Shannon. Hey, Dave. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Rum. Hey, Elizabeth. It's Friday. What is everybody doing other than hanging out with me? Oh boy. All right, so I have Emma and Catherine, but if there's any other level 3 people who pop in, just let me know and I'll take you. Otherwise, this is who I've got in the queue who's waiting. Here we go. So we've got Shannon. Shannon, you came back around. Thank you for that. I know I missed you last week. Rome, Genie. We've got Alyssa, Ray, Elizabeth, Karen, Sarah. You guys are all the people that I have waiting. And I appreciate your patience. We will get to you. And just as a reminder, the minimum donation is $55 for a question. So Sarah, unfortunately, that's not the right amount. So let me know if you want to pay the difference for a reading. And the new moon is coming. We try to align the live astrology readings with the new and the full moons, because it's going to be the most helpful for you guys kind of knowing what's going on. But we're going to have the new moon that's going to be taking place on Monday. So it will be on Monday. But right now the moon is in Gemini. The moon is in Gemini. The moon is in Gemini. Can you tell? So some of you guys are tapping in for the first time. It's nice to see you. Let's go ahead and jump right on into it. I owe Catherine Murray a reading. She is watching somewhere on the other side of the world, I think in Greece. And she is a subscriber who is on a different time zone. So sometimes we miss each other. All right, Catherine. So I went and I looked at the community tabs and I couldn't even find our back and forth, but I had a note to make sure that we did your reading. So I'm just going to touch on a little bit of everything. Probably one of the biggest themes being, I know that you've been kind of going through a lot of like health related things that you've been working through in terms of like healing. So something that really kind of catches my eye is one, there is definitely some action that's going to be going on with your ascendant in this next week. Venus will be going retrograde in the sign of Leo. So Venus will be retrograding through your first house and it's going to come back to your ascendant before going into your 12th house. So the next couple of months is about healing. It's about taking time to rest, recuperate, kind of get back on track. This may also be more prominent when Venus is hitting that 24 degrees. So you're going to see that about a week or so when it sits back on your ascendant, right around August 5th. And Venus will go retrograde back into your 12th house until the beginning of September, and then it's going to go direct. So kind of getting the vibe, it's like between now and like the end of September that you're trying to heal something. Leo can be relating to the back, but it can also be about the heart space. Another retrograde that you got going on that also impacts your health is Pluto is retrograde in your 6th house. So all Leo risings are going through Pluto retrograde in the 6th, reevaluating habits and health related issues. And in this next week, the nodes are going to be squaring Pluto. So you've kind of got it doubly. That's like all focus is on your body this week, what you're healing, what you're kind of detoxing and clearing out. Equally, the sun is your chart ruler. So something else we're going to see that's going to happen is that the new moon and the sun are going to come into opposition with Pluto between now and like the 22nd of July. So also, once again, a period of like planets, you know, getting ready to go into your 12th house. So there's like a real emphasis on retreating, healing centers. Sometimes it deals with hospital care. Sometimes it deals with specialty care. And the North Node is moving into the sign of Aries. So it's nice as it goes through this sign, it's going to come into a trine with your ascendant. So it's going to open up the possibility of seeing or thinking more positively, traveling, business. But I do think there is some irritation here because we've got a lot of 29s that are going to be setting up in this particular week. Pluto's going to hit 29. The nodes are going to hit 29. The sun is going to hit 29. And we know when things hit 29 degrees, it's a tipping point. So lots of pressure basically with these 29s on your sun and Neptune. And you're probably like, I want to get out of the house. I want to change. I'm sick of the emotional heaviness. When you start to see like the sun in a trine to your sun and also in a trine to Neptune, it's about emotional healing, clearing, releasing, and letting go. So I do think that there's a lot going on relating to that. I also have noticed here that you are coming into your nodal return. So something else is, you know, kind of setting up that's like getting you on track between now and the second half of August in terms of what that North Node is. North Node in the 9th, which is about the bigger picture, travel, philosophy, education, obviously ruled by Mars, and you've got your natal Mars in Capricorn, technically in the 5th house. So it's supposed to be opening things up, allowing you to have more time for pleasure, more time for creativity, and also like finally maybe feeling like you can get some more productivity in once your body is kind of rebounding and feeling a little bit better. You are going to start to feel some of the squares also between planets in Leo and planets in Taurus. It's pretty much happening from your 12th house to your midheaven. So there is a sense of being like, okay, I need to kind of get my act together, feel like I'm feeling better before I'm jumping back into action, which I do think is definitely a major theme the second half of October as eclipses start activating your 10th house of career. But first, there is like a need to reevaluate your faith, reevaluate what it means to release, heal, and let go. And there can be lots of clearing, especially in regards to past life karma. At the same time, Neptune is also in a trine to your sun. So there is a sense of purging, detoxing, clearing, especially on an emotional, physical, or psychological level. Watch for that nodal return to be coming up in August, which to me seems very prominent as Mars moves into your money house and starts trining your midheaven, and you're focusing on what you can actually get done and bringing in more resources. I hope that's helpful, and I look forward to your comments, and I'm glad that I was able to make sure that I got the reading to you this time, so I appreciate, thank you for your support. Let me go ahead and now take Emma. And yes, please hit that like button. So Emma, what's up? How are you doing? Emma is a level 3 member. She says, hey Candace, can I cash in on my monthly reading, new moon reading? I can't join the live, so I'll listen later. I hope, thanks heaps. You're very welcome. Okay, cool. So she's asking questions about this new moon. What am I doing? There we go. I had it right the first time. Sorry, guys. Okay, so we have the new moon on the 17th in just a couple of days. That's taking place in the sign of Cancer. You're a Capricorn rising, so this is going to be a new moon that's going to be in your Placidus 7th house, which deals with relationships. So new moons are opportunity for setting new intentions, fresh starts. This is a new moon that is making a ton of aspects in the skies. Obviously, a lot more action-packed also for the cardinal rising signs. So what you're actually seeing is a new moon that is coming into opposition with Pluto in your sign. So it's going to be this feeling of, where am I initiating relationships and emotional connections with other people that may get me out of my comfort zone? You may get a little bit more feedback from others. There might be more relationship themes going on with the sun and the moon in your 7th house. And it's also coming into a square with the north and the south node, which will change signs that very day, which means it's squaring the north node and its conjunction to your Jupiter. Now, by Placidus standards, this is, how can I open the door to relationships and growth that bring more fun, more creativity, more love, more excitement, and something in regards to like the heart kind of really opening up. I want to remind everybody, we had an eclipse in April. You guys remember that solar eclipse in Aries that was at 29 degrees? So crisis point, obviously, solar eclipse at 29, a square to Pluto. When we have this new moon just hours later, we're going to see the north node is going to hit 29 degrees of Aries, and it's reactivating that eclipse. So we're going to see that reactivation. So you're going to want to think back to what was happening in April, because there's almost like a second act. And now you have the sun and the moon squaring it. Here's the good news. The good news is the north node is conjunct your natal Jupiter, and the transiting south node is conjunct your south node. Excuse me, the transiting Jupiter is conjunct your south node. So you got two really big Jupiter transits basically happening at the same time. So there is lots of opportunity for fun, creativity, maybe making some changes in your home as well, because this is the whole sign 4th. And really relationships which are kind of initiating some of these changes when it comes to the direction of where you're going with your life goals and your career, along with what's happening in regards to your home and your family and your domestic zone. The moon is obviously the ruler of Cancer, so it's a little extra potent. And I notice it's right on top of your natal Saturn. This is your chart ruler. So I don't know how much you've like looked at this, but like this is a very important new moon for you, because it's basically saying, where are you learning to open up, be more transparent? Where are you open to making changes and connecting with other people and being vulnerable and letting other people kind of help make you feel more secure, nurturing you maybe, because it seems like that's kind of like what the heart wants and needs. Equally, I really love the fact that this new moon is going to be trining your sun in Pisces. And obviously you're going through a Neptune transit. You'll see in the Astro Weather this Sunday, I talk about how the new moon's sextile to Uranus promotes change. The trine to Neptune is about inspiration. This is about really tapping into your intuition and being able to like really learn how to communicate better, and like leaning into listening to your hunches and connecting with other people. In my mind, right, the first thing that I look at when I look at a chart is the chart ruler. So when you have a node that's impacting the chart ruler, when you have a new moon, when you have an eclipse, when you have an outer planet aspecting it, these are important. You have all of these things happening. So pay attention to the day revolving around the new moon before and after, because to me, it looks like other people are coming in to kind of help you initiate this change, where you're really tapping into the North Node in Aries and you're focusing on what you're building in your inner world, what's going on at home in the home front, which is kind of perfect because the new moon is in Cancer. The challenge is getting out of your own way because it's in an opposition to Pluto in your sign. And likely it may also exhibit some themes revolving around finances. Your needs versus other people's needs, borrowing, lending, that can also be a theme as well, as you start to see conjunctions to Saturn that's in your 8th house. Not many people realize that new moons are not just the next 2 weeks until we have a full moon. It's until we have the next new moon. So if you guys have listened to my new moon in Cancer video, I talk about how we're going to be kind of thrown into something in this next week where we're like, oh, that's scary, I don't want to do that. But we realize we have to do that, and that our emotions are really helping us tap into where we have to be willing to overcome change. I like it for you. I feel like it's not just a potent new moon for relationships, but it's about uncovering fear, setting new intentions in terms of like getting closer to other people. And then ultimately in 6 months time, when we get to the end of 2023 and we're having a full moon that's going to be in Cancer, you're going to be seeing some kind of relationship completion or fulfillment, which I would have said anyway, because the North and the South Node are squaring Saturn in your 8th. But it does look like there is some heaviness revolving around change, joint resources, or family karma that definitely needs to be dealt with. So be seeking people who can help you. Kind of funny, your 7th house, not many people realize it's not just about your marital partner. It can be your services. It can also be about business partners, clients, and it's also the house of your astrologer. So you're kicking off the new moon, talking to somebody and getting a reading and being like, what do you think I should do? So this is showing me that you're going to spend the next like month or so like getting perspective from other people. So you're already kind of in the flow of that, right? Good luck. I hope that that's helpful for you, Emma, and that you're able to watch this playback. Just checking in with everybody who's here. What's up, Connie? Thank you. Hey, Lindy. Hey, Marcia. Hey, KK. Hey, Awakened. So we got our level 3 peeps. Let me see who popped in. We'll probably leave the queue open to join and get a reading for like another 5-10 minutes. So if you guys want to scan that QR code, you can. We will get you in. We've got about maybe 10, 12 people, so you guys might need to hang out and grab a snack, but that's okay. Okay, so I got Shannon, which made me kind of laugh a little bit because I know there was a bit of back and forth. I missed you last week, so thanks for coming back around and getting a reading. I appreciate it. Shannon, we've got you here March, I'm reading today's date, March 19th, 1989 That was at 11:04 p.m. in Redwood City. So that gives you a Scorpio rising, a sun in Pisces, and your moon is in Virgo. All right, so are you here? For starters, is Shannon here? I just want to ask because there wasn't a specific, there was not a specific question, but I definitely see some stuff that's worth mentioning. So in your chart, something that really piques my interest is that you're kind of in a pivotal time here. So you've got Saturn going through Pisces. You've got transit Saturn in conjunction to your North Node. I can sum this up by basically saying the North Node is the direction that we go for soul growth. Saturn is about dedication, commitment, and timing. Pisces is about the vision and the belief, okay? So something revolving around Saturn going over your North Node, it seems like this is about tapping into your destiny. Oh, I see you now, Shannon. I wasn't sure if that was you. Okay, cool. Husband's getting a transplant end of the month and you're trying to get pregnant. Got it. So what you'll hear for Scorpio rising is the whole sign 5th house is Pisces. So I'm a Placidus reader personally. I feel like there is there is possibility of pregnancy. When I do one-on-one sessions, I look at progressions, I look at eclipses, I look at solar returns. There's a lot more that I go into, but I'll give you my hot take on this. What you're going to hear for Scorpio risings is Saturn going through the whole sign 5th is making commitments towards what you love, potentially becoming a parent, reevaluating the sacrifices you make to have a kid, so on and so forth. Obviously, you have a stellium of placements in Pisces, but it falls in your 4th house. Actually, by Placidus terms, Mars rules your 5th. So you had an eclipse here, which means that you've already set the intentions to make that happen and try. Mars rules children, and you've got Saturn, which is about delays and limitations, squaring Mars, which means there is a sense of there is home responsibilities, there is some kind of sacrifice that you're making in the right now because Saturn square Mars is indicating there's something that needs your attention in regards to partners. So it can be about partners getting surgery. So generally when you see Saturn in an opposition or a square to your 5th house Lord, it's a process of either trying and waiting and there's limitations until you come out of that square, which will be the beginning of next year for you, or challenges and upheaval in regards to getting pregnant. It doesn't mean that you can't, it just means that you might find that it's a little bit easier in the new year. By the same token, you do have Saturn that's also in opposition to your to your moon. So you were born with moon square Mars. So what you're having right now is basically a mutable square that's setting up. And the focal point is Jupiter and Mars, which means there's things going on where there is finances, time, resources, and action being devoted more to the partner. I'm wondering if it's a matter of being like, okay, from an emotional standpoint and a timing standpoint of getting other things in order and taking care of the health of your spouse, do you do that and then focus on pregnancy coming into this next year? I'll tell you with, eclipses that are going to be taking place in your 5th house, I do think it's very possible. I think it's a matter of timing. I also am aware that next year Saturn's going to go into your Placidus 4th house and it's going to come into conjunction with Mercury, which is going to be about, responsibilities. Like it's looking like next year is better timing wise. You may find that with Mars in conjunction to your moon, you're already trying and you're like, I'm trying, but I'm doing the math and realizing like, the timing of how this is going to play out may correspond with needing more support from family or needing to make changes physically, in the home. Sometimes squares do force things to happen. And I think that there may be this feeling of being like, okay, we need to quickly remedy Jupiter, Mars in the 11th house, in the 7th house, a partner's health related issues. Believe it or not, health of partners is going to actually relate more to your 12th house ruled by Mars. So you've also got Saturn that's in a square and Mars square Mars. Probably when you get Mars into Libra and you start seeing some trines, it may be better. A lot of that's going to be dependent on their astrology, so I don't want to speculate, but I would say take into consideration timing. When you have Mars also coming into Capricorn and Scorpio, that's also going to be decent timing for conceiving. You may benefit from either like talking to an astrologer or going and looking at your lunar returns each month, and you want to find a lunar return that's either in the 5th house or on the ascendant, or a lot of activity in the 5th house, which can be a month where there can be pregnancies. Also, you know, like full moon in Aries, which you're going to see in the fall. We're not going to have an eclipse in Aries. That'll be in Taurus. That can also produce, you know, finding out that you're pregnant as well. But my hot take is either waiting until Mars is coming into a trine with like your Venus, which is going to be right around the mid-November period. Or maybe waiting until Mars moves into exaltation and it's coming into trines with Jupiter. And that's going to be closer to January. But I do have a feeling that the eclipse that you're going to be having, that will be in your 5th house, may also prompt news of a pregnancy. And that's going to be end of March through April of 2024. I would just recommend maybe waiting until you get out of the Saturn, Moon, Mars square, because it can feel a little stressful and that not everything is going to quite be ready on time. And as you're having planets March, April, May go through the 5th house, it's a great time for announcing a pregnancy, for conceiving, and also it's just going to be better timing overall for doing the kid thing. Hopefully that's helpful, and sending lots of good vibes to the health of your partner as well. I think when you get out of the Saturn-Mars square, likely you may see some things improve with their health. Okay. Hey, Kirsten, how's it going? MV, you can definitely use that. Do I have your information? Can you send it to me so I can put you in? And then also let me know your questions. So send me all your date of birth info. Thank you. Wait until March so you get a Saggy. You got to consider though that you're going to have Saturn squares. So just food for thought. Be better going with water signs, especially if you have a lot of Pisces in your Scorpio rising. So February wouldn't be a bad time. Okay, let me plug you in, MV. Last call in 2 minutes, so if you guys want to get in and get a reading, please do. Okay, so September 14th. Did you have a particular question? Let me know. Thanks for the referral. I appreciate it. So I've got you as a Cancer rising, Moon in Pisces, Sun in Virgo. Valentine's conception. Just what the world needs, more Scorpios. I'm looking at this Venus retrograde over your south node and I'm like, ah! I appreciate it. I hope you and baby are doing well. Okay, so let's talk about this because obviously the new moon is on your ascendant. So fresh start, new moon, new you, smack dab on the ascendant, which is about as personal as it gets. I definitely feel like this is a great time for like a fresh start. I'm especially liking the fact that it's pretty much in a close trine also to Neptune. So this is about faith, belief system, philosophy, renewal of beliefs as well. I like the fact that it's also in a sextile to Uranus and Jupiter. So it's about tapping into your goals. And it's also in a sextile to your Sun and your Mars. This is a pretty nice new moon, if I do say so myself. Being a Cancer rising, you're more impacted, obviously, by, lunar transits. So new moons, full moons, transits on your moon. We've got boom, boom. How's transit Saturn on your moon feeling? The 8th house can be a little heavy, right? It's about what you're personally changing in terms of your emotions, your home, your family, your joint resources. Saturn's retrograding back over this while you have a new moon. So it's about being like, okay, we're going to flush out the old and we're going to welcome the new, right? I feel like because Saturn represents relationships, there's a sense of being aware of like where you're not getting what you need from other people, or you're not getting enough support, or you're reevaluating karmic relationships and like whether you need to focus more on yourself or on others. And it's really kind of locking into this North Node in Aries, and you're going to see the whole second half of July is all about like, what do I need? Where am I going? What works for me? And you'll become more aware of like who or what is standing in your way or threatening your ability to feel like you have control. Because relationships are going to get challenged here with the planets coming in opposition with Pluto in your relationship house and the North Node moving into, moving into your 10th house. I mean, this is really big energy for the late degrees of the cardinal signs. So any cardinal sign that is anywhere between 29 and 22 degrees this year, the nodes are going to be squaring. So you're going to be feeling that pretty significantly like the next week or two, but then the North Node keeps moving until it's coming up to about 24, 25 degrees in the fall, which is once again kind of saying it's bringing to your attention where you're becoming more assertive and focusing more on what you can do and clearing out and making changes in regards to your home or your relationship past. There can be clearings physically in the home space or with family here as well. So this is a very busy time, July, August, September. And then we're going to have an eclipse that's going to be kind of coming through there. I think because, the South Node's going through Libra in your 4th, and you're also getting ready to have like Venus going retrograde over your South Node, I would be mindful of when Venus is returning to around 25 degrees. So that looks like it's going to be around August 3rd. And then you're going to have that come back also like the end of September, early October, right around here. And Venus on the South Node is like reconnecting with the past, reflecting on the past. I can think that it can be a time where you need to be more mindful of like taking really good care of your self-esteem and your resources and your spending habits. And you may be kind of feeling like you're not willing to spend as much or buy as much. There's like a clearing energy of like having less, or like cleaning out closets, garages, spaces, and getting rid of things. On the other hand, you still have Saturn in the 8th house. So it's about what other people are here to give you. So as you go through home, family, emotional clearing, you're here to allow other people to kind of show up and give you what you need. And whether this is like partners, if this is family, if this is counselors, therapists, especially in the 8th house, I'm wondering if these are people who you've consulted with. Because to me, it seems like there's just like a huge emotional clearing that's going on for you right now. In the new year, Saturn's going to come off of your moon, so it's going to get a little bit easier. And I'm definitely liking the fact that it is trining Venus at the same time. So it's kind of bittersweet. It's like, let's clear out the past and all the gunk so we can move forward and feel like we can have fresh starts and not get caught up in the home, family, relationship past. But lots of pressure because you got a lot of cardinal in your chart. Like you, I'm born in 1989 and I have cardinal angles. So I'm kind of looking around going like, okay, how's this going to go? Knowing that it's going to put, pressure on both my Cancer and my Capricorn. So for many 1989 people, it's making decisions about where you're living, what you're doing work-wise, what's going on with your family, what's your future status going to be. So where you're living, relationships, career, there's like big decisions that are being made. And I think right now it's just about only allowing relationships in that are supporting your growth, right? If that makes sense. Watch those eclipses in the fall too. Those are going to be big, especially for your career. What's up, Wendy? Hey, Empress, how's it going? Hey, Christine, I'm going to do a roll call in just a second, let you guys know who I have. Got another one of our level 3 people. So if you guys want to get in, readings are now closed. So we've got, wow, we got a number of people. Rome, Genie, Alyssa, Ray, Elizabeth, Karen, Sarah, Kayla, Connie, Silk, Tonga, Michelle, Christine, Charmaine, who is this? Katie, Leah, Wendy, Victoria, Stephanie. Okay, that is it. That's who I have. I'll let you guys know. And Siva, you're last, but you got to send me your info. Okay, I'll let you guys know who's like next on deck, so that way you're aware. So we're going to be taking Rome, Genie, and Alyssa. That's who's next. We'll have a break in between because I have to plug some charts in. Thanks, Envy. I appreciate it. Let's see. Let's pull up Rome. What's up, Rome? It's nice to see you again. He says, what changes and new things is this new moon bringing for me? What can I expect? Anything fun, or will be a continue being a cruel summer? Oh, man. Yes and no. I mean, actually, you know, the horoscope for Aries risings is about to significantly change. I would have to say, like, the next month is going to be very, very life-changing for Aries risings. Because you're going to see that there's going to be a Mars-Saturn opposition. So you're finally kind of realizing, okay, it's time to get back into action, whether that's working or really committing to your habits, or you know, focusing on being able to like make headway and, you know, work through what's been some crisis. Because remember, you're ruled by Mars, and Mars is coming into conjunction with your Venus. So that makes me feel like it can be about helping others and also receiving appreciation and maybe some love in the process. Obviously, the North Node's about to go into Aries. The South Node's about to go into Libra. So because you're born in, 82, you guys are going to be experiencing the South Node coming into conjunction with your Saturn and your Pluto. So there's like this karmic clearing going on with relationships. And the North Node is moving into your first house, and it's Placidus, it's been there, but it's going to be there by whole sign, which means like, what do I want? What do I need? What works best for me, right? So once you get out of the Mars opposition in this next week, things get a little bit easier. And I think when Mars is getting into the later degrees of Virgo on your sun, it's going to be trining, bringing in opportunity for more money, more resources, and also changes in your career. The cruel summer aspect probably comes from the fact that eclipses are going to be conjunct your Pluto-Saturn in the fall, and Venus is retrograde in your 5th. But the truth is that, you know, Venus going retrograde is not all that bad in your chart. Venus rules your 7th house of relationships, and it's retrograding in the 5th house of true love. I have seen in certain situations for people who are having this retrograde that if they've had a rough run in relationships, there can be a reversal and a change that can happen. So it can bring back old love, but it can also help you reconnect with somebody who you're meant to kind of potentially be with. But it can also be about having more opportunities for like fun and keeping things kind of light. And at the end of this transit, when Venus eventually goes into Virgo, you know, in October, it'll oppose Saturn. So you can decide if you just want to have a summer fling. And if it's like not cutting it, then I think between that particular opposition in early October and then a solar eclipse that's going to be on your Saturn may determine whether or not that's going to go the distance. So really, I think it's going to be up to you. There's more, dare I say, power in the hands of Aries placements right now. So Aries, Sun, Moon, and Risings get to really tap into their inner selfishness. And they get to kind of have a little bit more of a focus on themselves and be a little bit more, focused on their needs. So I'm not telling you to like crush hearts or anything, but I definitely think that on one hand, you're like, I know what I need to go after, and I'm not willing to make some of the same mistakes I've made in relationship past again. But at the same time, there can be, you know, karmic connections and people who can come in with that South Node transit and Venus retrograde in your 5th. So in the back of your mind, it's just whoever makes it past that mid-October period is much more likely to stick, right? And I like the fact that the new moon is going to be in your 4th house. So it's setting the stage for, you know, figuring out, how do I want to feel? How do I want to live? Where is home? So if you're looking to move to a new place, if you're looking to feel more established, especially in the immediate next month, but permanently at the end of this year, this is a pretty powerful moon to be manifesting, you know, what does my ideal space look like? What does it feel like? How can I be setting intentions about creating more safety and security? And likely you'll be feeling this on Sunday as the moon is coming into the 4th house and it's connecting with the North Node. And you might kind of feel like, I need to stay down for a little bit. I'm just going to kind of like hang and rest and recuperate, get quiet, and start focusing on my emotional needs. I would go back and look at like what was happening in your life, you know, 18 years ago in the early 2000s, what was kind of playing out when you had the South Node go through Libra and the North Node go through Aries. Likely there was like a sense of not feeling as much support from other people and realizing that other people were kind of indecisive or they didn't really know where they were going, making you go, okay, if you're not going to do anything, I'm going to do it. And kind of you starting to kind of assert authority a little bit for the first time in your life as a young adult. Pay more so attention to the Mercury retrograde. I think the Mercury retrograde that'll be coming in September can also be a time when you're reevaluating whether or not relationships are in balance, and also be kind of making some adjustments to your physical health. I think eclipses in your 1st house and retrograde in your 6th is kind of like what works for me health-wise, schedule-wise, work-wise. And finally, as we get into the new year, you're going to see Saturn oppose your moon. So I definitely could see more stability on the home front in the immediate next month, but I think something more stable, especially at the end of this year. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Rome, and all your lady killing that you might be doing this summer with Venus retrograde square your Mars. I definitely think that could bring either some fun or some drama, depending on how you look at it. So we've got Genie. Thanks, Victoria and Lakshmi. I appreciate it. I will circle back around when we're getting closer. We're going to have Genie, Alyssa, Ray, and Elizabeth. You guys are all on deck. But for Genie, I've got you here May 11th, 87 at 1:26 a.m. I got to change that time. 1:26 a.m. Let me fix that. There we go. Okay. And your question was, I'm currently working, but I want to start looking for work in my field of career, but I'm not sure when will be the best time for this or love. All right, let's take a look. So now that we got the right time, you're in Aquarius rising with the moon in Libra and your sun in Taurus. I'm just going to put this out there and start at the end. Venus is going retrograde in your 7th house. So relationship stuff, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think between Uranus still retrograding pretty close to your sun and a Venus retrograde, whatever happens in terms of relationships, you just have to kind of like feel the summer out, because there can be a change in direction with relationships. People from the past can come back because Venus rules your past, and there can be a reevaluation of where you want to live, how you want to relate to people. Now is not really so much the time for commitment with, Uranus hanging out in your 4th house. You need a really strong, positive Uranus transit to bring that in. And while you'll get some, you're going to have Mars, trine. Next year is better for relationship stuff as Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction with your sun. And likely what you're going to find is you're going to either meet somebody while traveling, or you're going to consider relocating for a relationship, or have a really significant home change, and that'll open up relationships, but not right now. More in relation to the earlier question, which is like, currently working but wanting to start looking for work in field of career, but not sure it'll be the best time for this. Okay. So career stuff is going to be more relating to like your 10th house, which is Scorpio or Mars. And something that's kind of going on currently is that Mars in your 7th house is going to start coming into a trine with your Mercury and your Sun. So this can indicate doing some search for work over the next couple of weeks, trying to look at ways that you can change or transform your career. The trines to both Jupiter and Uranus do kind of suggest that there can be opportunity, but it's going to require you to get out, email people, talk to people, apply for jobs, doing things that's going to require you to do some busy work. And I could definitely see when you start having the Venus retrograde, because Venus is going to sextile Mars, support can come from people who can actually help you find jobs. So I'm wondering if this is like talking to a career coach or talking to a headhunter or somebody who's like in, dare I say, like temping to put you in the right place. Like you're going to need help from another person. I do think it's a good idea you're doing this now because like the next 2 years, Saturn is going to square Mars and that can be more difficult for work. And you've got the benefit right now of Jupiter in opposition to Pluto. So it does also suggest that you would be willing to make a change in regards to your career. That may also bring you an opportunity to relocate or potentially work in other places, or kind of go from working out in the world to focusing on kind of working and being closer to home. A lot is going to change within your home zone over the next year with Jupiter and Uranus coming into alignment, which can talk about relocating, expanding the home, living in a communal space, going back home, being with family. So the key is being flexible, I think. While Jupiter is in opposition to Pluto all year, and the willingness to maybe work with groups or companies that are going to give you that flexibility with where you could potentially live, if that happens. The other thing that I would say is that, Uranus is going to be very much impacted throughout like the next 2 months with the Venus retrograde. So while Venus is retrograding in the 7th and you're waiting to hear back from people and you're communicating with people, both professionally and on a romantic level, people are going to be challenging you and saying like, are you going to get out of your comfort zone? Are you going to come out of the house? Would you be willing to travel? Would you be willing to move? So you might meet some people that are really like encouraging you to make some of these shifts. And I think about like the transits going on at the end of the year, how you're going to have eclipses aspecting your Venus, and you're also going to have the North Node coming into conjunction with your Venus. So really good time for just really expanding when it comes to your money and your resources. And I do think that you're going to see a really nice run and a lot of development that's going to be going on with your finances come the spring of next year. But it may be as a result of like looking at some different options, over the summer going into the fall in terms of where you could potentially work or how you could be working. And most likely when you start seeing like Mars coming into a trine with Saturn, end of October going into fall, yeah, I could definitely see some stability that's coming through the work zone. But keep in mind, the North Node is still at the bottom of the chart, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, bottom of the chart. All of your heavy hitting planets are moving through the bottom of your chart. So it's going to be about being grounded, staying in one particular place, working closer to home, or having something that's going to give you the flexibility of being able to do that, right? But yeah, watch out for that relationship stuff, because I definitely think the Venus retrograde and a sextile to Mars could bring some stuff in, but there could be a little bit of like a back and forth. That's really kind of the feeling that I'm getting with that. Especially as Venus is squaring your Sun and your Mercury, there's a lot of like, what do you want? Why are you coming back around? Why are you bothering me? Type of vibe. But next year there's going to be a really exciting like sudden change when Jupiter and Uranus sit on your Sun, and you're going to be pretty deep in a relationship, I would imagine, come spring of next year, and talking also about a huge home change. Hopefully that's helpful for you. We've got Alyssa, Ray, Elizabeth, and then Karen. Let's see, Alyssa. Do I have you in here? What have sworn I just had you. Okay, I guess we gotta plug you back in. Okay, give me 1 second. Here we go. All right, now I've got you, Alyssa. All right, June 4th, 97, 6:03 p.m. Yeah, so that's going to give you a Scorpio rising, a sun and moon in Gemini. What's up, Alyssa? And hey, everybody. Okay, so her question is, been going through a rough patch in love life, finding my calling, curious about the rest of the year, what to expect. Vague question, sorry. It's okay. I mean, here's the deal. Rough patch in relationship, you've had Uranus going back and forth over your descendant. So whether you're in a relationship, June 14th. Sorry, I don't know why I'm having such an issue with your chart. Here we go. Whether you're single or in a relationship, the Uranus conjunct your descendant is creating some shakeups. You've also recently had eclipses in your 5th, which is about relationship romance. And you got Neptune in opposition to Mars, which rules your chart as well as your 5th house. So there's like a lot of different things going on here that's creating some challenging, confusing, feeling kind of alienated type of situations. All right, so what's on the horizon moving forward? Let's talk about the positive stuff. Keep in the back of your mind that Uranus has yet to go into your 7th house. So that's going to be happening more so like in the next year or two, and that's when there's definitely going to be more shakeups going on. I look at Jupiter also going into that house, so next year does seem to be better on the relationship level. The problem is that you've got Neptune that is going to oppose Mars for another year or two, and that rules your chart. And Saturn, which is coming in for an opposition with Mars. So the question is like, are you choosing people that are choosing you? Are you choosing people that are unsure of what they want? Part of it is it's some karmic stuff. You know, when planets are on the South Node, we have to deal with like loss, and Pisces can be about being alone or having isolation and what we do at that time spiritually. It can also have you questioning like what direction are you going in when it comes to your home life because it's in the 4th house. The positive is that on the other side of this, you know, Pluto is back in Capricorn, and for like the better part of the next year, it's going to be trining your Mars, which means there's more focus on what do I give power to? What do I invest my time or energy into? What am I thinking? How am I communicating? Scorpio, Capricorn is your whole sign 3rd, so it's more mind over matter. And a lot of Scorpio risings this particular month are definitely going to have a bit of a rough time because the transiting North and South Node are coming into a square with Pluto, which is your modern ruler, which means all my Scorpio risings are going to benefit by communicating a lot more kindly with themselves and people out in the world. I know, I get it. I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart, so we can definitely be kind of sassy and kind of, guarded, maybe. Definitely we can sting, right? That's why Scorpios have stingers. But I think that this is about you kind of going like, okay, I'm focusing on what I can change. And so like mantras, also writing down your goals, focusing on changing and transforming the way that you communicate and see the world is your best bet. And also believing more so in yourself, because Mars trine Pluto can be very powerful for making some big headway in your career and like making more money. You're younger, okay? So part of this is also you have got Pluto transiting Neptune. and Neptune on your south node. So you got two really significant Neptune transits. So there's a lot of like, hi, is there anybody out there? Like, I'm alone in the world. What's going on? My recommendation is focus more on work right now. I know that sounds like you're not what you're crazy about, but focus more on work, because you have a lot of planets going into your 10th house, which is going to drum up more opportunity for making headway professionally. It might bring more resources with trines to your second. And it's definitely going to show where there is like work to be done, and also lots of opportunity to really exercise, better scheduling skills with trines to the 6th house. You'll see more relationship stuff set up when you have positive aspects to your 7th house Lord. So next year, when Saturn goes into Pisces and it starts trining your Venus, you will have the opportunity to have growth in a relationship. There may be a sense of you reevaluating the past, or maybe connecting with somebody from the past. You know, Pisces is whole sign 5th for Scorpio, and it's not unusual when Saturn goes into the 5th house that you either find someone or something that you really love, or an old love can come back, especially during a retrograde. Interesting stuff with Venus in your 8th house. You know, generally this can indicate that there's always some intensity around relationships, and, you know, people come sometimes with baggage, or come sometimes kind of tied to other people. And you do have Venus that's in a square with Saturn. So love and relationships get better over time. I think the key here is to be really focusing on filling your own cup, going deeper into that North Node, and really focusing on your goals and what you can create. And then you'll see this natural progression next year as Jupiter and Uranus come into your 7th house, that there can be more sudden, unexpected excitement, relationship fulfillment. And between Saturn trine your Venus, stabilizing relationships, and Jupiter Uranus in your 7th, spring of 2024 looks a lot more action-packed. And definitely, I think a move is on the horizon, because you're going to hear a lot of Scorpio risings are going to move with Pluto back in Aquarius. But you've also got Saturn in the 4th. So I think that there can be a sense of going back and forth, trying to decide, do I relocate with somebody? Do I meet somebody in another place? Where do I go? And it's really still for another, year or two, building lots of positive energy into your career. Still, when you come into your Saturn's return, I'm always cautious when I talk to younger people about their chart, because I've been on the other side of this, having readings when I was 18 to 24, hearing people go, oh, Venus conjunct Saturn, you don't waste your time until you're 30. And that can be really challenging. But what I wish somebody had said to me, because I have hard Saturn-Venus aspects like you, was, okay, things are going to get better as you get older. Don't focus so much on what's happening right now. Focus more on what you're building, and round about the time you get to 28 to 31, you're going to find that things are going to stabilize. In your case, because Saturn's in the 5th house of loving the self, and it's in a square to Venus, which is other people, there is a real need to focus on loving yourself, giving to yourself, so that way when you get into your Saturn's return, which will be in Aries, you will be put in a situation where you're going to go, do I choose me or do I choose the other person? Because it may have some major relationship or financial repercussions. So we don't want to be chasing relationships. We want to know that as we get older, relationships are going to get better. You got eclipses in your 5th house, which I do think could very well bring in a pretty significant relationship, and Saturn can be something that's mature, but it is talking about long-term goals, right? And anybody who's got, Venus in the 8th house is very sensitive. Venus in Cancer does fixate on the past. You've got Venus conjunct Juno too, so it's about marriage and commitment. But the true alchemical marriage is the 8th house, which is the merger of the home, in your case, Cancer. But there's a lot of figuring out who you are, what you love, what you enjoy, all the way up until you get to be about 30. And then you're going to go, okay, now I can make the sacrifice and go into the commitment, or decide to have a family and do these things. But who knows? Sometimes those people show up when you're having, Jupiter in the 7th and eclipses in the 5th, and it's a matter of making that commitment down the road. For stuff like that, you want to look at, your progressions. But what's going on is you got Saturn and Neptune on your south node. So there's a lot of letting go of the past, going into the future. What can you build right now? And that's only going to help benefit relationships, and also bring people in who are going to be equally as hardworking as you, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you, Alyssa. We've got Ray, Elizabeth, Karen, and then Sarah. Let's see. why some of these people are missing. It's so weird. My astrology software decided that it just wants to be possessed. January 6th, 92. .13 p.m. Oops. All right, so we've got Ray. January 6th, 92, 4:13 p.m. in Idaho Falls. You're welcome, Alyssa. Okay, so Ray says, I've been in a long distance relationship during the full moon in Capricorn, found out we're going to meet in person for the first time in 6 years. Mid-August, out of the country. I also have overseas move on my heart, as well as finding my footing in a career I actually enjoy. Not sure if I have a specific question. Just would love an observation. Cool. So interesting, because there is some really pivotal things that are coming up in relationships right now, being a Cancer rising with the nodes coming into a square with Pluto. So it's about kind of maybe an unveiling of the potential future of a relationship. Saturn rules your relationships, and you've got Saturn conjunct the moon. So it's like relationships starting, you know, possibly in a way that's unusual or unconventional, and also karmic. And yeah, I mean, traveling, I think, with Saturn in the 6th, Saturn in the 9th, which can be about going to foreign places. And Saturn is also in a trine to your ascendant. So that's allowing you to think more about making changes with where is home, what feels most emotionally comfortable. And you're really gaining all of the support from Saturn sextiling all of your Capricorn. So of course, while Saturn is helping you travel in the 9th house, it's also helping relationships kind of grow and suddenly improve. Saturn square Venus is interesting because that does also represent like turning points in relationships and reevaluating relationships and determining whether or not you have the time or the capability to maintain relationships. Then you're going to be seeing transit Saturn that's going to go into your 10th house next year, and it's going to square your 6th. So really committing more seriously to where your future is going, and like possibly making a change also in where you're working might also potentially be in the works. I'm more curious about the fact that you're getting ready to see Pluto is coming into conjunction with also Saturn and the moon. Because that's going to be happening over these next couple of years. And so Pluto does represent a transformation. So have you guys been talking about long-term wise what that looks like in regards to the relationship, and, you know, talking about what kind of a home maybe you would consider like building or investing in or moving into? Because that's going to be coming up here pretty soon. You're going to see that start kind of piping up probably about spring of next year, if you can transform your home. Yeah, you got a lot of, somebody else is mentioning all your stelliums. You have a stellium in Sagittarius in the 6th house, so that can be about freedom when it comes to your daily routine and being of service. And then you've got also, you know, technically another 2 stelliums between Aquarius and Capricorn, but the only planets you have in Aquarius is Saturn and the moon. This is all about like your interaction with other people. And how other people play a huge role in like the direction of where your life ultimately goes. And obviously you do relationships a little bit differently because you've got Moon, Uranus, Neptune in the 7th. So you might meet somebody in unusual ways. And then it leads to you being able to go and merge also Saturn, Moon, and Juno. That all belongs somewhat to your 8th house, so it can be talking about some unusual karmic circumstances that bring you and partners together. Really interesting. Moon in opposition to Chiron is also going to be about healing wounds revolving around like home and family relationships through partners. So perhaps maybe at first the relationship feels more comfortable at a distance because it gives you that security, right, with Chiron in opposition. But then when you come together with other people, you realize like, whoa, I can't always have distance, and you have to learn how to work through things with other people. I could definitely see you considering a move, probably when Saturn comes into an opposition with Jupiter. That'll be next year. And when you have like a supporting transit to your Mercury. So when Saturn comes into opposition with Jupiter, there is like an expansion and a contraction. And Jupiter in the fourth, people generally do dream about living in a foreign land. But Saturn is going to say, be serious, be practical. You know, what do you need to do to make that happen? Are you going to be able to physically live there? Do you have to get a job? Do you have to figure things out legally? And you're also going to see that Saturn is going to start coming into a square with all of your Sagittarius. So like work and stability seems to be like a huge focus, right? I also think that you might start trying to figure out how this might be feasible during the retrograde period that we're going to have here pretty soon. Mercury's going to go retrograde over your Jupiter and your IC. So that can be about, well, could I move? What does that look like? Where do I want to be? And it's trining your 7th house. So you might start talking about this in September. And then I think probably in the fall, not the fall, the end of the year, like December, when you have a retrograde here, you'll be discussing whether or not you guys can move forward as well. But huge turning point though, with the North and the South node squaring Pluto. Have you not physically met this person before? Well, you became a widow in your 20s. Well, I hate to say that, but Saturn, Moon, Juno, all connected to the 8th house, and that rules your chart. That does not surprise me. I almost feel like that could have happened primarily because the real soul union happens right on the heels of your Saturn return. Saturn, Moon. Moon, Saturn. Here. And about embracing changes in potential relationships. Wow, that's some heavy stuff. You've never met before, yeah. So the North and the South node square Pluto is kind of like this unveiling that's like, whoa, this is like a thing, now it's happening. So it can be a definitive turning point that makes you realize like, okay, you know, how are things looking moving forward? Because then you're going to have an eclipse that's going to be taking place in your 5th house of romance. But what you're going to hear for Cancers is it's about your living situation. And it's squaring all this Cap. So it's like, where's the relationship going? What are we doing? Like, what's next? And then you make a decision about, okay, you know, what are we potentially considering trying to make happen next year? And when Saturn comes back into a trine with your ascendant, or when you want to catch it before Saturn starts squaring Mercury, because if you wait another year, it's going to be much more challenging for you to relocate. So you may be trying to see if you could maybe swing this maybe next spring, if everything goes according to plan. And if not, I could definitely see with Saturn in your whole sign 9th that you're like, well, do I have to get married to move? Well, do I go back to school to move? Like there may be other options through the 9th house to potentially facilitate and make that happen. And then next year you're going to come into Jupiter in opposition to Venus. So that can indicate that there is going to be a lot more back and forth. But ideally you're trying to swing this before 2025, because when Saturn and Neptune start squaring Mercury, it's not going to be as easy for you to move. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful, and congrats on finally going and being able to meet someone. That Venus retrograde in the 2nd house, you might feel like something that you've been waiting to physically have, or a person you've been waiting to like hug or be affectionate with. Now it may finally kind of happen, and so it can represent like that fulfillment. Good luck. Elizabeth, Karen, Sarah, and then Kayla. You guys are next. See, how many people do I have left? I might kind of plug everybody in so I'm not making everybody wait. He's a triple Leo. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I've only seen 2 of those in my whole life, and they're definitely something. All right, I've got a number of people that I have to plug in. So if you guys want to give me like 5 minutes, So you want to grab a snack or something? I'm going to plug all of these in really quick so that way you guys don't have to wait for me to upload each one. But Elizabeth, Karen, and Sarah, you guys are next. Okay? Michelle, I don't have your info for Michelle L. I need your birthday, your time, all that information, the city. Please, if you can put that in the chat. location and your question specifically. August 7th, 1987. We have Charmaine. No, not yet. Sorry guys, it takes longer because I don't have your guys' info, so I have to keep going back over it and everybody has to wait. 11:25. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it. What's up, woke ones? Okay. I think I have everybody but Charmaine. I just want to make sure she didn't leave this info earlier. I'm not seeing it. Let's see if she pops in. So Charmaine, if you're here, let us know so I can add you in. Thank you guys, I appreciate the love. Okay, so go back to my lengthy list here. I don't even remember who we had last. Who we have last? We had Ray. Right? Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna have Elizabeth, Karen, Sarah, Kayla in that order. So let me go and find Elizabeth. Okay. March 19th, 1990, 7:25 a.m. in Minneapolis, general career reading. You got it. All right, so let's take a look at what's going on with your career, Miss Aries rising, sun in Pisces, and your moon's in Sag. As I've said, you know, the Aries rising horoscopes is really dynamic in this next month. because we've got the North Node going into Aries. So it's about channeling more action, more drive, more determination, more courage. It's like a can-do, I'm going to do it myself, kick-started energy. And it's coming into an immediate square with Pluto in your 10th house. So it's a lot of like confronting what needs to change out in the world or professionally. There can be some intensity with like bosses or superiors, so keep that in mind. But I definitely feel like this is this awareness that's like, okay, something has to change. What is it that's going to be changing? So if you're wanting to change directions with your career, if you're wanting to, finally end something, start something new, initiate something, you may feel that come up. And something I noticed about your chart is you've got Scorpio intercepted. So basically with Placidus, sometimes houses can swallow up whole signs. So Pluto ends up kind of sometimes being a blind spot. So it can represent something that comes out of nowhere that you're like, whoa, there is that thing that's changing. All the while you're getting ready to have Mars go through your 6th house of work. So you're going to see lots of support in terms of getting down to business and making something happen, putting in lots of work and effort, and a Venus retrograde in your 5th, which is about figuring out what you love, what you enjoy doing. Now, a strong Saturn transit will definitely allow you to commit more seriously to your career. So I noticed that right now you still got Saturn that's in your 11th house, Placidus. There's much more focus on your goals and professional associations and connections and working with other people. Enjoy this year while you have it, because next year when Saturn goes further into Pisces, it's going to drop into your Placidus 12th house and it's going to be there for a while. So you can use that to like work behind the scenes, be working for nonprofits, charities, for hospitals, be working in the mental health field, be working abroad or internationally. It really depends on what your like direction is, but I see that you have Sun and Mercury in the last degrees of Pisces in your 12th house, and you also have Saturn sextile that in your 10th. So what is it that you do for a living, if you don't mind me asking? Do you work in like mental health? Do you work with like addiction? Do you work in like therapy? What is it that you do work-wise? Because to me, it seems like the bulk of the maturity that's going to be developing, or I guess the maturation of your career, is going to be closer to 2025. Doesn't mean that you're not going to have it now. This year you did turn 33, so you're in your Christ year, so you're in a 10th house year, so Saturn is your time lord. But Saturn is hanging out in the 12th house, so that's like working at a university, continuing in education, getting a certification, working in hospitals, working in nonprofit, somehow working behind the scenes before you're really going to see the bulk of stuff that's going to start in about 2 years when Saturn comes into conjunction with your Sun and your Mercury. Now, sometimes I see people also work in like rehabs or clinics or prisons, wellness. Okay, cool. So especially in regards to like meditation, past lives awareness, mental health, spiritual kind of cleanliness, because that Sun Mercury is pulling from your 6th house. So I do think that this is going to be a lot about mindfulness and how that is tied to health, especially emotional, psychological, or mental health. And if you're really wanting to focus on like writing a book and putting something out significant, I feel like you definitely want to be doing that probably right around the time Saturn's coming into conjunction with your Sun and your Mercury, and you're going to be seen as like the teacher or the mentor or the guru for those things. But it also might tie to going and doing research and getting information relating to like clinical trials or other things that's kind of combining both spirit and science, if that makes sense, right? When are you going to see that there's going to be more headway? I mean, you do have Saturn that's in a trine to Jupiter all year, so I see this as more as like the writing phase. Probably when Saturn comes out of that trine and it starts trining your Pluto, you can start getting more recognition and support for, forwarding some of this stuff as early as like April, spring of 2024. But the best will be saved for when Saturn and Neptune sits on your North Node, and I think it's going to be about talking about a combination of, like I said, metaphysics and also health and wellness. And when the North Node sits there in 2025, that's definitely a better time to kind of release some stuff
as you're coming into your Jupiter return, which could quite literally be about releasing a book or publishing something, especially for women. It can also be for younger people. It can be for children, because you have this in your 3rd house. And once again, we've got another like cap stellium. You know, you've got a really significant Saturn signature between all these planets in Capricorn at the top part of your chart, and all of this Aquarius. The charts like these get better and more evolved the older that they get. So when you have a lot of Saturn placements, it's like a lot of dedication and focus like the first 30 years, and then you kind of realize like the bulk of all of your career development happens very early, and then you ease your way kind of into your career. But people who generally have like planets in the late degrees of Pisces are very intrigued by meditation, also hypnosis, past life regression, stuff like that might start coming up that might interest you, that factors into some of the things that you're going to potentially be writing about. And when you start having Saturn also coming into the later degrees of Pisces and sextiling your natal Saturn, you're also going to see growth there as well. But really, you know, the next year or two with Neptune on your sun and also your Mercury, super psychic transits, there is a lot of sensitivity, especially being around other people. There may be a feeling of needing to like hermit out. And really that's your life in a nutshell, right? Sun and Mercury in the 12th house. It can be about the work that you do privately, and you only kind of emerge when you're like, okay, this is what I've been working on or studying or writing or learning, and like now I'm ready to kind of release it into the world. So it is like a very, like priest-like, you know, like very peaceful, but very kind of in-depth with the psychological and mental and spiritual stuff with those placements. I see like lots of nuns and priests and pastors and people who also like work in nonprofit or work in like the mental health field that have this placement. Your chart kind of reminds me of Mr. Rogers. I don't know if you've ever looked at his astrology chart, but you've got some similar placements here that make me feel like it's about being able to approach people in a way that seems like very simple, especially in how you communicate, and approaching your writing style intuitively and kind of like feeling like you're being guided, especially with Neptune conjunct your Sun and Mercury right now. There can be like this feeling of like channeling and kind of like downloading stuff. But it's a process, right? As much as I hate to be like, oh yeah, you know, it's not going to happen for another 2 years, you need more support from peers and more kind of connection and networking this year before you get into next year. And then you're going to start to see, okay, now that I've got those connections, I'm going back in and I'm going to continue the process of writing. And some of the sweetest stuff is probably going to hit right around 2025, right? Right when the world needs it the most, by the way, when the North Node sits on your Sun and your Mercury. And I feel like one of the biggest contributions you're going to make is like some creative thing that you're putting out into the world that you're wanting to share with younger people, because the Sun rules the 5th house. So it's going to be about how you're helping kind of guide younger people with some of that stuff. Very interesting. You have Mercury Kazemi too. You're super psychic. You're super, super psychic with that placement. I'm really curious to see how that kind of comes together for you, and just keep focusing on that North Node in your 1st house. What am I feeling tapped into? What am I supposed to be working on? And just listening to that drive and going and doing the things that you feel like you need to do right now to really kind of meet that timeline. And you know how long it takes to like write a book and then go and like shop it around and then eventually get it printed? You might look at really it's just about another year of getting all that stuff together before you're in negotiations for publishing it, and then you'll do it probably in 2025. Good luck. I'm excited to see what you do. I love that chart. I love those placements. Okay, so we've got Karen. Okay, pull her up here. And Karen is on her 2nd Saturn's return. So let's give Karen a round of applause for making it the 2nd time around. Although it's not going to be exact for a little bit. You also have until 2025, but you're in the beginning process. I've seen a lot of Aries risings tonight. So Karen's 10/11/66, 5:46 p.m., and that was in Morgan City. So she's got an Aries rising, Sun in Libra, and Moon in Virgo. And she says, second Saturn's return. Well, she's got Saturn up here in Pisces at 24 degrees. So it's super Piscean in the 12th house. So part of the karmic nature of her Saturn return is reevaluating what she's doing with her, her alone time, her private time, right? Very similar to the last reading. So Saturn is what are you doing behind the scenes? And she's got Saturn conjunct Chiron. Really interesting that people born in the, mid 60s who have this conjunction, psychic healing, spiritual healing, past life healing, right? So Saturn, obviously every 28, 29 years, you have that Saturn return. So I would encourage you to go back and look at what was going on in the early to mid 90s when you had the first one. But I'm going to go out on a limb here because you have Moon, Pluto, Uranus. So that is your home lord. That is about change and transformation. And also it is about unexpected, sudden things. In opposition to your Chiron, you learned a lot during your Saturn return about making changes that were likely difficult, maybe a little painful, maybe a little scary. And going through maybe separations, potentially with family members, changes with your home, changes with work and your habits, and realizing that you had to do that to better protect your emotional space. And I notice, that you also have Vesta there too. So becoming aware of like the impacts that it has on you health-wise, and that sometimes you're like, I do need to be alone. I do need to sleep in my own bed. I do need to meditate, and realizing that you get really impacted with all these planets in the 6th house by other people, their habits, their problems, their feelings. And this is a lifetime of learning to have better health and better routines. So this time around, when you have your Saturn return, which, you're starting to feel, but like I work with like a 2 or 3 degree orb. So just in the back of your mind, know that it's going to start really kicking up for you next year. You're going to have Saturn and Neptune in conjunction. Okay. So this is going to be about, I'll let you guys know a secret. Like there's another big world event coming in 2025, okay? I don't like to fear monger, but like Saturn and Neptune in the late degrees of Pisces will be another huge lockdown, I think. It's gonna be another virus. And I think for you, I feel inclined to tell you you were born for this. I think you actually really thrive when you make changes in your home situation, or when you make major changes on your habit level and you give yourself the space that you need to heal. So in preparation for your Saturn return, I would say to you, you got the North Node in your 1st house. How are you taking care of your body? How are you supporting yourself? You're getting ready to also see Mars go through your 6th house and oppose Saturn. So this is about being better about your work habits, your eating habits, cleanliness, organization, and maybe getting some things in order over the next week or two. I would say that to anyone, really, because we're going to see Mars go through Virgo and it's going to trine Jupiter and Uranus. So the more that you're making changes, the better you're going to be feeling in your skin. And what a lot of people are going to learn over the next 3 years with the North Node going into Aries, physical fitness, and the ability to really take care of yourself, and realizing that we are all responsible for taking better care of our health is a big theme. North Node Aries will come into conjunction with Chiron next year, and it's going to be about healing crisis. And then finally in 2025, Saturn and Neptune will align both in Pisces and also in Aries. So a lot of people are going to realize that your best investment is going to be in your health. So right now it's about getting that physical health in order, so that way you're feeling better, and then you're feeling more capable of being I am going to weather the storm when this second Saturn return comes through. And the fact that Neptune is going to be there makes me feel like it's going to be you really having a really structured spiritual and probably even cleanliness routine, where you're meditating and clearing your auric field, and really putting up your psychic shield, and really focusing on having a private space that you can call home when you feel like you need safety and security and shelter. I mean, it's funny. It's I think back to when I had my Saturn return, even being somebody who gives readings for a living, And I knew what my Saturn return entailed, and I went and I did my due diligence to go and talk to my people, my astrologers, and be like, hey, what do I need to prepare for? And even in knowing what's coming, I was still not prepared. So, you know, sometimes things play out like textbook wise. I do think for you with Saturn at 24, in an opposition to Uranus, it's about knowing exactly who you need to take space from, and like where it's okay to go against the grain a little bit and like not follow the crowd and listen to your intuition, and continue to keep doing that, because it's also going to be funneling into a sextile with Uranus in your first house. So you might also be feeling like you're really building on your own personal vision and your own personal goals and making some big change ups, both physically and financially, to kind of better support yourself. Looks like that Saturn return is going to come through closer to here. So when it hits about 22 degrees, so you're looking at like March of 2025. And when that's happening, you're also going to see that Jupiter is in Gemini. So there's going to be lots of crazy stuff happening with that square, and watching both Saturn and Neptune, drop into Aries is going to be like a whole new world. People are going to realize in 2025, things are very, very different. We're starting brand new cycles as planets ingress into Aries. And that may be a time when you were like, focusing even more on your vision and what you're kind of committing to and what you're creating for yourself. But I'm very confident in telling people like the world is going to be a very different place in about 2 years' time. So when you start to learn astrology and you study the patterns of what's coming, you're more so better prepared. Everybody needs to be looking at the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that's going to be taking place in 2025, because we're going to have water issues. We're going to have illness issues. We're going to have mental health epidemics. Everybody needs to be physically and mentally preparing themselves so that way they are going to be able to weather the storm and not buy into the fear campaign, right? Hopefully that's helpful, Karen. Definitely consider getting a Saturn return where you can talk to somebody who can sit down and cast the chart. That is something that I do if that interests you. And I would recommend maybe doing it sometime next year. You know, you can do it the later part of next year, so you're prepared when that hits at the beginning of 2025. All right, so we've got Sarah, Kayla, Concha, and then Silk. All right, so Sarah, I've got you September 9th, 1982, 7:49. So that's a Libra rising, Sun in Virgo, Moon in Gemini. All right, adjustment. I got the second one. Sarah, did you have a particular question for me? I'm not sure if you said that in the beginning. I'm trying to scroll, but I don't know if I'll find it even if you did. But if you have a particular question, please let me know. That would be helpful. Otherwise, I can talk to you about Venus retrograde affecting your chart. I can talk to you about the eclipses. There she is. Okay, I'm sure you said something because I know you did, but I just don't know where that message is. Everybody's talking about how hot it is. It's hot everywhere, man. I'm in Texas right now. It's been so hot out here. Sarah says, anything that stands out to you. Okay. Let's talk about the fact that Saturn's in opposition to your chart ruler. And you also are getting ready to have Venus, your other chart ruler, go retrograde through your 11th house. Then you're going to have eclipses in Libra. Okay, so Libra rising, right? So the ascendant is focusing on finding balance and harmony and collaboration with other people. That's like the name of the game. And for you, once again, another person born in the early 80s, you're going to start really being impacted by these eclipses that are coming in through the sign of Libra. So in the back of your mind, I want you to think about mid-October. And when mid-October comes, you're going to have a solar eclipse that's going to be in your sign, which is going to be right smack dab on top of your Saturn, which means you're going to be feeling themes revolving around how am I feeling in my body, what's going on with my home, Where am I creating better boundaries in relationships? What do I need to be committing to within myself? The list goes on. So that should be noted, that particular solar eclipse around the 14th of October, okay? Pay attention to your back, flexibility, breathing, right? Moving around. And it's ushering you into like the South Node coming into your ascendant sign, which is kind of a let it go phase. I love that exalted Saturn in Libra. I say this, I feel like every single time I see this, because it does represent the knowledge and the awareness of what it takes to make relationships work. But in the first house, it's like not being in the best relationship always with yourself, right? And then Pluto on top of that is really intense feelings revolving around whether or not you open up to other people. Intense relationship experiences, intense body-related things can happen here as well. So when the South Node comes through here, these next couple months, between now and October, it's like we let that go. Why? Because it's initiating and activating the polarity where we find the balance, which is going to be the North Node in your 7th house, which means if you're willing to let your armor down, relationships can really flourish. And the North Node in the 7th can bring new partnerships, collaborations, therapists, astrologers, people who support you. It might be a very social time for you as well. And there can definitely be some really significant people who can come into your life that can support you. On the other side of this, I'm looking at 2 pretty significant Venus transits, which are getting ready to get going. One is you're going to see from the end of July into early September, Venus, your chart ruler, will go retrograde. So essentially what this means is that you're re-evaluating what you love, what you value, what you find pleasurable, and it's in your 11th house. So it's about re-evaluating some friendships, re-evaluating some of your goals. You may rekindle and reconnect with some friends or romantic partners. You might find that it's a time where you're just really needing to get out and socialize again. And it's really nice for Libra, especially if you have all this Libra in your chart, because it's going to be sextiling Libra. So I would be reevaluating who are your people, who can you reconnect with so you can feel loved. And then on the other side, you have Saturn retrograding coming into an opposition with your natal Venus. So that's also challenging because you're feeling like love or relationship or harmony is at a distance. I have definitely, seen how this is materialized for Libra risings. I'm a 0-degree Libra rising myself, so I'm going through some of the same transits as you. This Saturn retrograde in the 6th house is like very like get it together, right? Whether it's, really being aware of who you can work well with or who's not cutting it, your working schedule, your health schedule, your fitness schedule, and if there is too much sacrifice that's going on in your daily routine and the impact that it can be having on you emotionally or psychologically. So I think with Saturn in opposition to Venus, you can be feeling like a little disgruntled with your schedule, where you're working, who you're working with, and you can have issues with female relationships. And you may see this play out specifically in September as that opposition comes back again. And you can feel like some relationships are at a distance, but it's gonna clear out in the new year. And then you're gonna start seeing eclipses showing up in your 7th house in the spring. So what does it all mean? Something is getting ready to change, I think, for you, either emotionally or on the home front. And the lesson here is to let other people in and let them help you through that, and also to reconnect to the people who can support you the best if you're feeling like some relationships are at a distance or out of reach. I do feel like there is a lot of growth that's going to be coming next year as you see eclipses and planets, moving through your 7th house. And also when you begin to see the nodes come into the early degrees of the cardinal signs, and you're going to have your cardinal cross, which is really also ushering you into relationships next year. But Saturn, Pluto, and Mercury, letting your guard down, right? Not holding all of that energy in your body any longer, and allowing things really to unfold in a way where you're letting other people love you. Please no major cosmetic or physical changes. I know a lot of Libra risings are like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to do that to my body or my appearance, or I want to cut something or change something. No. Venus is not going to be in a good position until about the 8th of November. So for Libra risings, Taurus risings, Leo risings, all of you guys really need to cool it. I'm telling everybody, if you want to cut your hair, get a wig. If you want to get a tattoo, get a fake one. If you are, wanting to buy all new clothes, no, you don't do that. Put them in a bag, throw them somewhere in the back of your closet, go to, try to see what you can find in a secondhand store. Don't make any major changes or anything like that. And hopefully that's helpful, and you're going to start to see the fruits of all of that come through in the spring, where there's definitely better relationships that are on the way. Okay, so we've got Kayla, Concha, Silk, and then Tonga. We're making headway. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Kayla, let's see, do I got you here? I feel like I have so many people that my software is just like, it's just eating charts, essentially. And they're just going missing. That's really what's happening. It's all right. What's going on with Mercury right now? Oh, so this is Moon square Neptune. Duh. All right. So Kayla, I've got you here October 13th, 95 at 6:16 p.m. in Great Falls. No specific question, just a general forecast. And says, I'm not doing any changes. You're welcome, Sarah. Okay, so general forecast. Notice how many cardinal rising signs we've had tonight. Almost everybody's been like Aries, Libra, Cancer. We've seen a lot of these rising signs. A lot of these people are like, what the hell is going on? All right, so Kayla, you're a Aries rising, sun in Libra, and moon in Gemini. Happy lunar return to you. It looks like you just had your lunar return here. I'm all interested with Mars right now because Mars rules your chart. And so you got Mars going through your 6th house of health and daily routine, checking off your to-do list, focusing on productivity, maybe rolling your sleeves up, get your hands dirty, doing some cleaning and organizing and some work. Hard work pays off. That's something that I will tell you. Don't get disgruntled in this next week as Saturn comes into an opposition with Mars. Mars wants to push and Saturn says no. So this is about not overdoing it, right? Not going beyond your limits, and learning how to kind of pump the brakes if something is not feeling right. And then once you get beyond that opposition, there we go. Once you get beyond that opposition, there we go, you are going to see that then Mars is going to start picking up a trine to Jupiter here around like the 1st of August. And then you start really seeing the hard work pay off physically, financially, right? In terms of being like, okay, I feel like I've got it. So it seems like you're trying to kind of figure something out or kind of remedy something at work or something in relation to your routine maybe, or your health. And then Mars is going to keep picking up momentum as it comes into a sextile with your placements in Scorpio and also your 10th house. So watch out for issues with superiors, right? People kind of telling you, not yet, you can't get this yet, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I noticed that you're also going to see Saturn in opposition, natal Saturn in opposition to Mars as well. So maybe you're going to pick up something there also. That might be more relationship oriented, where like you're feeling like somebody's giving you some space, so there's something changing with a relationship. And then of course my eyes go to this eclipse that you've got coming on your birthday, around your birthday. There we go, like the day after, but it's within a degree. Solar eclipse on your birthday is like action packed. It means like something is totally clearing out so you can have a brand new fresh start. I think with like retrogrades here, Venus and Mercury, and then a solar eclipse here with a reverse nodal return is like you're cleaning house. Bad habits, changes in also, your routines, and also clearing out stuff in regards to relationship is a huge theme. And I definitely feel like with that solar eclipse on your sun, it's about kind of like figuring out what relationships aren't necessarily working for you. No coincidence that your Saturn's at a 19, which might be also about realizing, okay, if I'm in relationships that make me feel isolated or make me feel alone, is it better to be that way? Do I go and get support from someone who can kind of give me insight on a spiritual or on an emotional or psychological level about how to better navigate relationships? Huge themes. You know, when you turn 30, your annual perfection year is your year 7, which basically means Venus is your time lord. And that's all going to be about making big decisions about relationships and commitment. Now, I know you're a little ways out from that, but you are going to start feeling the effects of your Saturn return next year. And I do think that that's going to be about navigating karmic relationships. So this summer, with some of the transits, like the Mercury retrograde in, Virgo in your 6th house, and the Venus retrograde in Leo, that's going to be also in your 6th house, you're realizing like where other people are not meeting you halfway, and what old relationship stuff has to change, what old patterns have to change, and possibly changes with your habits. You're coming into a period of time where you're also having your reverse nodal return, which happens every 18 years. So this is like where the past and the present meet in the future, which is cool because you can get a little bit of both with this. Okay, that's the good thing. The North Node in Libra in your 7th house is encouraging you to go deeper into relationships, and the South Node in Aries in the 1st house is saying, I've done a lot of stuff by myself. I want to focus more on relationships. However, because the nodes are reversed, there is a sense of being like, okay, well, I can decide what relationships are going to go, and also where I'm taking a little bit more time for myself. And it just all happens to be squaring Pluto. So to me, it looks like there's some big changes going on with maybe either some of your status in the world, or in regards to some of your professional goals, that's prompting you to become more hungry, right? The North Node in Aries can be hungry for, this is what I want. And you might notice that there's like this clearing effect that's maybe happening with relationships. Generally, when I see this transit, I always look to Venus, and I'm like, what's going on with Venus? Well, Saturn's trining Venus, so you are clearing out relationship karma. And you've also got Pluto that's coming in for the square with your Venus over the next couple years. So I'm not going to say it's not relationship time, right? You don't ever want to say that to a Libra. But especially when you have this much focus in your 7th house, you're going to realize that not everybody is necessarily going to give you the support that you need, and that you're going to start looking at relationships and going, I want to have people around that are going to actually be partnering and not making me feel like I'm being left out in the cold. And there is this sense of having a sense of redirecting your life where it's like, is it all about relationships, or is there actually more stuff going on over here that's about, control and making changes out in the world and not waiting for other people to tell me what to do or when to do it? There's some indecisiveness with that North Node and Sun in Libra. Sometimes there's a tendency to let other people run the show, right? Because where the sun is, there can be like a sense of dominance. So now it's a lot of, I think, figuring out who you are outside of relationships. And if people stay or if relationships develop, that's great. But that's not the end-all be-all focus in your life right now, right? Set big intentions revolving around your birthday. I would say that's anybody who's having like a new moon on their birthday, but the fact that it's going to be an eclipse is telling me that it's really setting the stage for some big changes that are going to be bringing you brand new things for the better part of the next year. Hopefully that's helpful. We've got Concha, Silk, Tonga, Michelle. Let's see, Concha. What's up, Connie? How's it going? Leo rising, sun and moon in Taurus. Connie says, my question is, I know I have my North Node in Aries, and I would like to know, how does that affect me in my love life? I'm currently single. You're welcome, Kayla. All right, so your North Node is actually in Taurus. I don't want to like crush you, but it looks like the true node is 0 degrees and 0 degrees. So you are just about here on the 16th to have your exact nodal return. Which honestly, I'm not going to say it's good or bad, but it really puts more emphasis on your Venus. If you had North Node in Aries, it would be based off of your Mars. So I don't want to be the person to kind of break your heart, but North Node in Taurus is what you have. So you're getting ready to have your nodal return. Yes, the North Node is going to move into Aries. So when it moves into Aries, by Placidus standards, it's still in your 10th house, which basically means until the end of this year, the North Node in your 10th house is action, new things, setting up in regards to your career and what you're initiating, right? There's going to be eclipses there next spring. So actually, I could even say even into spring of 2024, when you have a solar eclipse and you're on your midheaven, that's going to be even more unfolding. And I wonder if you're going to like launch your own business of sorts. That might happen. Anyway, but yeah, your actual North Node is there. Now, the North Node going into Aries and the effect that it has on your relationships. Well, as it is with Cancer risings, even though you're a Leo rising, you are seeing that the North and the South Node are squaring Pluto, which is pretty close to your descendant. Could it be that there is a sense of clearing out relationships? Yes, but I think it's like people who you work with, or like old habits or patterns or relationships that are out of balance. That's the 6th house. You're really looking for strong Uranus aspects or transits for there to be changes in your love life. And so on one hand, I think about like next year when Jupiter, Uranus are in conjunction in the spring, and there should be a sense of you very much being in a public relationship, and it's like sudden and unusual and unexpected and very exciting. But I also look at this and I go, she's got Pluto coming back into Aquarius, so there's going to be a definitive change in your relationship anyway, which may be, or your relationship status, which may be rather intense. It depends. You want to look at like progressions and stuff too. I mean, I know in recent years with Uranus on your sun, there's been like a lot of like people who come in that you're friends with, and it could be something, but it doesn't evolve into anything. It's kind of erratic. You're now over that because, Uranus has left your sun. Now you have Jupiter coming into conjunction with your sun. So it is possible you can meet people through work. It's possible you can meet younger people, creative people. Jupiter is going to go retrograde at 15 degrees. So it also will not conjunct your sun until next year. My thought on this is, if you want to know when there could potentially be relationship stuff, you got to clear out people who are taking up too much space first. And then 2, look for when there's the full moon in Aquarius around the beginning of August. That can also bring some kind of decision and conclusion regarding potential relationships or friendships. And that particular full moon is going to square all your Taurus up here. So there can be a sense of like, what are we doing? What's going on? But I think it'll be more after the Venus retrograde. Better time for like dating is definitely going to be when you get planets into your 5th house, which is going to be November. And I'm liking, November, pretty much through spring of next year is going to be more so relationship time. But when you have outer planets conjunct an angle and Pluto square Pluto in the nodes, I feel inclined to tell you, you may be meeting people who are going to be like intense, really fixated on you. Some of them may be obsessive. Some people may be a little resistant to change. I don't know. You do have Saturn, which rules your 7th house, and Uranus in your 5th house, conjunct Juno. That means the person who you may settle seriously into a relationship with may be younger, culturally different, sudden, very quick, that there's like a instant connection. And I would be more focused on who am I connecting with, reassessing the relationships and making sure you're getting what you need, making decisions about commitment in December, and then watching the rest unfold next year, right? If that makes sense. Connie says, I've met a younger person. Girl, I love that. Are they culturally diverse, or do they have that kind of Sagittarian, Uranian vibes? Are they like tall, like longer hair? Are they like really into travel or, philosophy, that kind of stuff? Sage of the Lotus says, what time is the conjunction? Good question. You think I would know this? So it looks like they're going to align at 21 degrees. And looks like that's happening around 4/20, 2024. I'm not making it up. It's real. He's tall, yeah. Usually Sag, Saturn and Sag in the 5th is younger but mature, taller. Sometimes they have longer hair. Maybe they like sports. They like culture. They like traveling. They might be into like martial arts or things relating to archery, horses, gambling, that kind of stuff. Interesting though. I mean, you know, look, there is definitely going to be lots of things that are shifting between now and spring of next year. And it may surprise you how quickly you're moving in the direction of a relationship. And I think something about the square that's going to be taking place makes me feel like it's about whether or not you're open to the idea of, you know, sharing space with somebody again, right? That's very possible. You just came out of, or you're just coming out of your nodal return. So with that North Node in the 10th house, with all those planets in Taurus, you're like, oh yeah, I'm all about business and like growing and like making money right now. So I'm not saying it can't be relationship stuff too, it can. But a Venus retrograde in your first house this summer is all about giving that energy back to yourself and making sure that whatever you're participating is something that you like really love. Connie says he definitely likes sports. Yeah, Saturn and Sag and Uranus in the 5th. Basketball. They're tall, yeah. Sag is always tall. Yeah, I think you have some stuff to look forward to, but enjoy the Venus retrograde. It's about like making somebody kind of chase you, you know? I'm not saying play games, but I definitely could see that as a time where you're like, okay, you got to like really show up and impress me, you know? Keep us updated. I know you will. Let's see. Let's pull up Silk. And there we go. All right, Silk, 7/14/95, 6:40 p.m. Los Angeles. Astrology reading, birthday. Can we all say happy birthday to Silk? Happy birthday. Although it looks like it was several hours ago. So let's see here. So year 28. So you're in a Venus annual perfection year, which is all about Taurus. So it's about finding what you love, creativity. And Venus is located natally in your 7th. So this can be a big year for relationships. Hey. So what's going on in the skies right now during your birthday? Well, you are coming into a new moon phase, so there is both a sense of clearing out before you start something new. Obviously, Saturn is your chart ruler. Saturn is in a trine to your Mercury, so that's about kind of like consistency and communication and stability and learning to kind of ask for what you need, so it's good for money, resources, and stability. I would really pay attention to the Venus retrograde. I probably sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but when Venus is your time lord and it goes retrograde, things change big time. So when you think about the 5th house and like what you love and what you're hoping to create, when that planet goes retrograde in your 8th, there can be a sense of going deeper and like feeling like you need more passion, you need more physical connection, you need more intimacy in your life. It can be a time when you're getting honest with yourself and focusing on truth when it comes to really wanting to merge with other people. I could see the next 2 years being really big turning points for you in your relationships, because you're going to come into a relationship year at 30, because Saturn is also going to start coming into a trine with your sun over the next 2 years. I wonder if this is a year where you either meet someone or a relationship is unfolding and it's like showing you what it is that you truly want in partnerships. You're still kind of in the midst of like a Saturn-Neptune transit, so trying to find the words to better kind of communicate and express yourself can feel challenging, but I think the key with Neptune in a trine is channeling, reading, learning more about metaphysics, maybe journaling and kind of getting a handle on what your feelings and your vibes are. Getting readings can be really helpful for giving you clarity here as well. And I do feel like some of the other times that are also going to be quite active for you is going to be when Venus comes out of her retrograde and she opposes Saturn, because that can be like making some hard decisions in regards to love and relationships. So make a mental note that when this opposition happens, the beginning of October, it's going to be about whether or not you're getting what you need emotionally, physically, financially. That stuff is going to come up for you around October 8th. And then equally, when Venus comes into contact with outer planets this year, this is also going to be really important. So oppositions to Neptune might seem a little like there's fuzziness or there isn't great communication. Venus coming into conjunction with Pluto, which is not going to be happening until mid-February, can represent a really significant and powerful time for you in terms of self-esteem and resources next year. And Mars and Venus are going to move together in your second house, so it's really good for money at the end of February and creative expression. And then Venus will meet with Saturn the third week of March as well. That might be about moving, that might be about conversations with siblings, that might be about learning something new. Venus, Neptune, similar themes. And then Venus coming into conjunction with the North Node makes me feel like big things changing in regards to your home life. And then by then, you're also feeling the squares. So it's about whether or not either a relationship with relatives or relationships with other people is stepping up and supporting you. What I like about the progressions is that, you know, your 28th year, you figure out what you love. You're more creative. You're, you know, trying anything. Next year is going to be more about organization and scheduling. And then after that, it's going to be more about relationships. So if you're single, I would say now is a really good time to start thinking about what you're looking for and what you want in the long term, especially because I know you have Saturn in opposition to Mars, so it means that you may not do some of this like settling into a relationship type of vibe or committing to a certain place you want to live long term until closer to 30. But this is the year that you start feeling inspired and you start looking to kind of go after what it is that you're going to enjoy. A lot of things are really going to start coming together for you over like the next 18 months. But being that you're going to have a new moon pretty soon, it's a really good idea probably when that new moon hits to set intentions. And it can be about like clients too, like having a new moon in the 7th house. If you have like a client-based business, this can definitely be drumming up and giving you up the opportunity to kind of see more people and connect with more people and be promoting yourself more, especially when it comes to like media and connection with people, like, you know, within your local community with that trine to Saturn in your 3rd house. And birthdays are really potent times because whatever's happening revolving around your birthday more or less likely is going to be the theme for the rest of the year. So when we take a peek at this return, look at this, Libra rising, Sun on the midheaven. So this is about being seen by groups of people. And the ruler is Venus, and Venus is getting ready to station in the 11th house, square Uranus. This is about you meeting with groups, and maybe teaching groups, maybe collaborating with groups, working with friends, things like that, but bringing yourself to the top of the chart where you're going to be more visibly seen, right? And look, North Node and Jupiter in your 7th house. My feeling on this is be prepared for home, emotional, and family changes, and see some of the best in terms of romance and relationship stuff happen from about maybe March through June of 2024. And lots of growth within your career. You're definitely going to see that. And I'm wondering if there's going to be training or teaching or traveling going on in this next year with the Sun in the 9th house. Right? Yeah. And then also having that return. Venus conjunct Juno. This is definitely going to be a relationship-oriented year for sure. And then the moon returns to your 5th house. I'd be careful with pregnancy there, girl. When the moon returns to the 5th house, when you do the chart overlay, that can happen. But that can also be meeting somebody very significant that you have a really strong bond with, right? Just a little sneak peek of some of my secret sauces. I like to compare the returns, and sometimes I like to compare the progressions and stuff too. Hopefully it's a good birthday for you, Silk. I'm sure we will chat soon. I've got Tonga. When was the last time I saw you? It's been a little bit. So Tonga, I've got you here February 20th, 75, Cap rising, Moon in Gemini, Sun in Pisces. Hey Candace, how can I use the energy of the new moon and nodal shift to improve my finances and physical health to support me moving abroad next year? I like that. Okay, well, you're asking good questions, especially considering the fact that the new moon is going to be in your 6th house of health routine. So it's a great time to set those intentions. It's on the cusp of your 7th house. So part of me feels inclined to tell you also this can be about how you're going and seeking support from other people who can be healthcare professionals, massage therapists, dietitians, like wellness, emotionally and physically, that can help you. So we want to set intentions with that, especially because the opposition is to Pluto. So in a very loving way, this is about all Capricorn risings learning to let people come in who can help you get out of your own way or get out of your own habits, especially when there's issues revolving around not wanting to give up control, right? This is coming from somebody who has a Capricorn stellium, so we're in the same boat. I think that really the lesson here over the next week or two is okay, where can I ask for help and, really be open to when these people show up to taking some of their advice. Usually we'll see results within about a month of setting those new moon intentions. Remember, Cancer is emotional, but it can also be about the stomach, and this can be about the digestive tract, especially because this is trining your 2nd house, and we have also got Saturn trine Saturn. So I wonder if this is becoming aware of how emotions affect the body and habits, how emotions affect eating habits, what's going on with sleeping habits, and I think a Saturn in your 2nd house, you may try to do more to improve the immune system in Pisces, maybe doing a lot more liquids and juices and tonics. And there's also a lot of really focusing on supporting the immune system. And Saturn's retrograding in conjunction to your sun. So, Saturn sun aspects, whether it's the conjunction or the square, it's not unusual that we do have some health related issues and lower vitality. So since Saturn is retrograding back over your sun, I would really recommend just being careful, not trying to do any surgical procedures unless it's necessary. Maybe seeing a foot reflexologist, and taking really good care of the immune system and the feet. But I think as Saturn retrogrades, from the 2nd into the 1st, if we're not focusing on really investing in our health, we start to see that actually physically appear in the 1st house. So Saturn's going to come back. It's going to hit your sun. That's going to happen later in the year. And that'll be from September until really the new year, and then you're kind of in the clear. So it's September through December is when you have to really be on top of it. And it can be about detoxing, clearing. It can be about doing things where you're getting rid of cleanses. I've heard a lot of people with Saturn and Pisces that are I'm doing a heavy metal detox, or I'm doing a parasite cleanse, or I'm going sober. It's about what you can do without. Right? What you don't necessarily need, and how you're emotionally kind of going in the direction of being aware of where that's kind of triggering some of your habits. Pluto square the nodes. It's squaring, Pluto in your 1st house. So what you can potentially change. Lots of water, resveratrol, stretching, yoga, upward incline, hiking. These things can really help, especially when you got Saturn on your sun. May not feel good. You might feel a little stiff and a little rigid. We always feel the effects of Saturn more when it's in the 1st house. We feel our age. But this is about consistently pushing up the hill. And I think that you're going to really start to see the results in the new year when Saturn leaves your sun. Wanting to move or relocate and be abroad, that's going to be connected to Venus. And so you do have Neptune coming into conjunction with Venus. That's about making magic happen when it comes to resources, and you're going to have eclipses in your 9th house. So you want to use the eclipse around mid-October to set intentions around relocating to a foreign place, because that's an eclipse in your 9th house, which is about that. And that's going to square Mars, so you're still trying to get your body in order. But I have a feeling that when that eclipse comes full circle and Jupiter moves into your 4th and it trines your ascendant, it's looking more doable, April through June of next year, right? That looks doable in my mind, especially as Saturn's coming into conjunction with Jupiter. And you're going to see sextiles between the 2nd house of money and the 4th house of home, and Jupiter's going to be in your 4th house. And then Jupiter's going to come into conjunction with your moon, which might talk about like a home away from home and having like a second place that you're living. So the aim would be cutting back on spending and resources, being mindful of what you're eating, taking care of your body and your self-esteem, to make this happen. And really, there's no easy way around it. Saturn in the second house is come up with a budget, don't eat out all the time, be mindful of your self-esteem and the effects that it has. You might opt for like fasting or doing more shakes or like liquid diets, especially because it's going to sextile your Mars in the 12th. So you may benefit from, you may benefit from fasting. I'm not a doctor, but just food for thought. And then when you have a much more powerful transit involving Jupiter or Neptune, right? So like when Jupiter is sextiling next year and when Saturn is coming into a square with Neptune, you're going to have a better shot, I think, as long as you're sticking to your goals, being able to facilitate actually making the move, right? But yeah, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction for you starts next spring, so that can be an indication that you could potentially have a change. In your case, you may benefit from listening to the Aquarius rising because that conjunction is going to meet in your 4th house, so it's about a sudden unexpected shift in like living in a different place. But now it's about facing all of the habits and the patterns that we don't want to let go of with the square to Pluto on your ascendant. And I would say go and get some feedback from other people over the next month and see what other people tell you and be open to, you know, letting other people kind of give you guidance in how you can kind of make some of these changes. And then when Jupiter conjuncts your moon, I think you're going to be in better spirits next year and you're going to be in better health. And that's going to be right around the summer of next year, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you, Tonga. Sending you good relocation vibes. Where are you thinking about going? So we've got Michelle, Christine, Charmaine, and Katie. You guys are all up next. All right, Michelle, I've got you here, August 7th, 87, 9:30 p.m. in Pittsburgh. Just want to make sure that's right. Michelle says, I'm going through a lifestyle change. What have a romance? Do I have a romance coming this summer? Is that what you're asking? Is there romance coming this summer for Michelle? Well, oh boy. We're going to have one heck of a Venus retrograde through all of your planets in the 6th house. So first of all, I love this for lifestyle change. I think for Venus retrograde for Leos, a big shift in regards to, you know, their life direction, how they're treating themselves, how they're dressing, how they're, you know, loving themselves. And then for Pisces rising, Saturn's going retrograde on the ascendant, so it's about focusing on commitment and dedication to the self, goals, and bodies. So you got it both ways. Relationship's going to be more related to Mercury, okay? And you do have Pluto coming into an opposition with Mercury, but that's a long-standing transit, so there's going to be more kind of like going back and forth with conversations and relationships with, are we friends? Are we something more? What are we doing? Now, I think the challenge here is Saturn's on your ascendant. So even those Pisces risings who are, you know, in a relationship and, you know, committed, definitely there is a sense of becoming more aware of what they need on a personal level and like having a sense of like boundaries and limitations with others. So if you're single, Saturn in the 1st house, be mindful that the next 3 months with a Venus retrograde in your 6th, where you can see that you're so dedicated to health and commitment to this routine that you're not willing to kind of like lose yourself in a relationship. And also Mercury retrograde, you're going to realize like where certain relationships are kind of out of whack and they're maybe not necessarily working. Huge focus on investing in yourself. I mean, you got the North Node conjunct Jupiter right now. That's all about self-esteem, building on yourself, focusing on also financial security. Like this is a very me time. Not that you can't have romance, you can. You may see something pop up when Venus retrogrades in conjunction with Mercury. That could bring something up right around the 27th of July. and Mars is in your 7th. Although I think that there's going to be like people like coming in and you're going to be like, nope, not yet, not good enough, like knowing my worth. So you're going to be really mindful of like who you are willing to engage with personally. Your North Node is in Aries, and it's in the 1st house. So those of you guys who were born in 1987, you're coming into your nodal return, which means you're kind of getting in alignment with the universe of like doing the things that your astrology says you're here to do. So what is the North Node in Aries in the 1st house? It's active, it's physical, it's dynamic, it's focused on your goals, ruled by Mars. Mars in the 6th house, conjunct Sun and Venus. So you say lifestyle change, yeah, it's like how you're eating, how you're treating yourself, how you're working out, and just developing habits and being committed to those habits and not letting other people get in the way of it. So I think between like the full moon in Aquarius, beginning of August, Saturn still sitting on your, you know, conjunct your ascendant, there is a sense of the people who come in have to be capable of giving you everything. Like they have to more than meet you halfway, right? Can there be romance for Leos? Yeah, but I could see a lot of Leos like changing their mind. So be mindful when there's like a Mercury retrograde that's going to take place in September. There can be a bit of a back and forth as to whether or not you want to proceed forward with a relationship, and you might realize like, actually, I'm good. Like this is not necessarily, you know, quite working yet, or now is not the right time, or I need some space. I think when Venus goes direct and Venus is crossing over your sun with Juno, you have more likelihood the mid-September time, I think, of trying to make relationships work. And you're also going to be experiencing a solar eclipse in your 7th house right around the 14th. So with Venus on your descendant and a solar eclipse there, I think October is better timing. And it's all about really kind of knowing your worth and not allowing other people to kind of overtake your routine. And as the nodes come into a square with the moon in your 11th house, maintaining focus on, you know, relationships with friends and not losing yourself in your romantic life, and staying committed to some of those goals as well. So it's a lot of finding balance. That's really what this looks like to me. Even though it sounds kind of like ominous, it's not. When you have like a better Mercury transit, like for example, next year, when you start seeing Jupiter sextiling your Mercury, which is going to be June, and you start seeing eclipses that are also taking place and transits through your 7th house, I could see more going on there. But this is the year that you're kind of getting situated with your routine. So be mindful that you might change your mind at the end of summer. And you're really kind of coming into a sense of awareness of just personal boundaries and not letting people in and have access to you unless there's going to be an equal exchange. Good on you for making those changes. You're really going to see a really prominent physical transformation at the end of summer. When you get into October, you're really going to see the results because Venus is retrograding through your 6th house. So even though you might feel like you're not seeing the changes, something is going to shift right around like October-ish, and people are going to be like, oh my God, you look great. What are you doing? And then you're going to like realize like, okay, what I'm doing is working. So we've got Christine, Charmaine, Katie, Leah, Wendy, Victoria, Stephanie, and Savika. So for Victoria, who's asking, I would say come back in like 15, 20 minutes. And then we will take you. Hopefully that's helpful, Michelle. We've got Christine. April 5th, 94. Are you there, Christine? I do not have a question for you. Equally, did Charmaine ever come through? Where's she at? Charmaine. If you're here, Charmaine, let me know. I'd love to get your information so I can give you your reading. There she is. There she is. Christine says, girl, I feel like I have no clue what's going on with my life. My biggest issue right now is I have an opportunity to move to another state, but I'm torn in between staying and going. I feel as though relationships are being very influential in my decision, and I don't love that. Staying gives me a chance to be more independent, but going is better financially. Well, and it gives me an opportunity to go back to school. I'm currently in LVN, waiting to get my RN. Either way, I feel like there are big challenges. What would be more beneficial, and what the heck is going on? Christine, thank you for your question. Well, So you are a Sag rising, Sun in Aries, and your moon is in Aquarius. What the heck is going on with relationships right now? Well, here's the deal, okay? I have a couple people in my life who are Sag rising, a couple of my friends, and they've all been like, hey, there's this like sudden thing that's changed with my living situation, or like I have to move, but my partner will let me move in with them, or this amazing opportunity popped up, but like I'm scared, what do I do? I think this is happening both because it's a combination of Saturn in your whole sign 4th, where you're making decisions about moving. For you, it's in your 3rd at a 7, so it's about relocating and going to school and being with a partner, 7. It's also a combination of the fact that there's eclipses that are taking place for Sagittarius in Aries, which is your whole sign 5th, which is about, romance, relationships. And Jupiter, your chart ruler, is conjunct Venus at a 4, which means you got some romantic person coming in being like, yo, come live with me. It'll benefit you. You'll be more comfortable. And this is moving into your whole sign 6, which is about changing your schedule and your routine and going and getting the skills and the training necessary to continue with the growth in regards to your career. Whether you like it or not, the next year or two with the North Node and the eclipses in the 4th house is going to bring more opportunity for home change. If you don't move now, you are going to see that that's still going to be coming up for you spring of next year. It's interesting because, Gemini's on your descendant. I know relationships can change a lot. It's ruled by Mercury, and you've got Mercury conjunct Mars. So even 2 years down the road, when Saturn conjuncts that, you're going to be in a similar situation where you're going to consider moving because of a relationship. Or do you guys move to a bigger place? Do you guys buy a house? Are you even with that same person? So on and so forth. Big things happen during your Saturn return, So if you've got Saturn in your whole sign 4th, a lot of astrologers would say there is a lot of dealing with home-related issues, and you're in your Saturn return all year. I would wonder if there is a real interest in seriously being with this person, because you're going to have Jupiter coming into conjunction with Uranus on your South Node. I'd be less concerned with like you moving and relocating and being with somebody. I'd be more like, do you really love them? Could you see yourself really seriously being with them? I do see it being really enriching for you to kind of have more love and support with those placements in your 5th house. It can also produce unexpected pregnancy, so keep that in the back of your mind with Jupiter and Uranus on your South Node ruled by Venus. It means that you would move, and then there would be like conversation revolving around, okay, well, could we see ourselves being together? And you may end up having a daughter because Venus is in its home sign right on the cusp of your 5th house. Probably getting a little bit more than you bargained for in this reading, but I'm going to tell it to you like it is. I guess the key is like, do you potentially have a backup plan? And if you do move, do you have a place that you can come back to? Or is it going to set you up for having to kind of start all over in the spring, right? That's the question. And I would never tell anybody to like push a relationship in the midst of what's about to be a Venus retrograde. Now, Venus is going to be going retrograde in your whole sign 9th, which can be about relocating and moving somewhere further away, and it's going to drop into the 8th house, which means you're going to look at this and you're going to go, what am I sacrificing in order to do this? What do I have to gain? I think that when I think about education, I think about a retrograde in the 9th house. So it's not just about, are you moving and is it going to be more beneficial for you and is it going to be more affordable? It's like, does this make it easier for you to be able to go back to school? Because if it does, especially with trines to your sun, I would be like, that's not a bad move. You could relocate, be in a relationship, give it a shot, go back to school with the understanding that you're going to give it at least that long. And if you guys are still on the same page when you're done with this in a year or two, then you can talk about, moving forward. But to me, it makes a lot of sense. And the 4th house naturally squares the 7th. So when we deal with situations in regards to the home, or we make decisions in regards to the home, it can open up things in regards to the 7th house and make it possible for you to, have changes in relationships, right? Your Saturn is at a 7. What I will tell you is that likely this change will come quickly because the retrograde is about making the decision over the next month or two and then pulling the trigger and deciding if you're going to move. And I think the key here is, because you have so many mutable planets, is reminding yourself like you can create change. So if you decide that you want to do this and it's not a forever thing, that's fine. You might have about a year, maybe 18 months, and then you can decide if you want to make another change. But I would take everything into consideration, and knowing that the North Node's in your 4th house, it's a really good time to be figuring out how to move, or where you can be living, or where you can live where you're going to feel like you have more control over the direction of where your life is going, right? It's not a bad move. Jupiter's going to be in your 7th house next year. I mean, do you really want to go back and forth with somebody at a distance? Because that might continue to keep happening. As soon as Jupiter goes into Gemini, it's going to be squaring your planets in the 4th house. So it's like, do you want to extend this and wait a little bit and wait to the spring and then have this conversation? You can do that, sure. But I think that you're going to find that there's going to be a lot more togetherness May, June, July next year anyway. So it might be a matter of just delaying the inevitable. And if you know that you're going to go anyway, well, it depends on how serious you are about the relationship. I would maybe go and visit. You know, Venus retrograde in the 9th is a good time to go somewhere out of state and visit for a little bit, feel it out, and then come back. And then as Saturn is retrograding, getting ready to go direct, you make that decision closer to the end of the year, right around the eclipses, which I think is going to be good for making decisions about what you're committing to in your career. Not a bad thing, to be honest with you. Definitely not a bad transit at all. I would seriously consider it, because it is part of your Saturn return, with Saturn being at a 7. It's about relationships and home. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Charmaine, is she here? Where's she at? We got Katie, Leah, Wendy. Okay, let's pull up Katie. Hey, Katie, what's going on? So she says January 973, giving you a Pisces rising, sun in Capricorn, and your moon is in Pisces. I want to know what to be focused on, and with my Pisces Sag energy, you know I care about love. With Cap energy, money opportunities mean a lot to me too. Should I be concerned with the North Node, South Node? Okay. All right, so let's take a look. So when you ask about the nodes, I'm going to assume you're asking about the nodes changing signs. I definitely think, like with the North and the South node changing signs, being that you are mutable, you're going to hear as a Pisces rising, oh, the North node's going through your 2nd house, which is going to deal with money and resources. And the South node is going through the 8th house, which is about making changes and releasing and letting go of resources. Not by Placidus terms. You may benefit by listening to the Aries rising predictions for the North node and the South node, because the North node is officially in your 1st house. The South node is officially in your 7th house. So the North node, when it taps into Aries, I think it's going to be about what do you possess. So it's like, what do I have for myself? And where am I releasing, letting go, or connecting with karmic relationships? So that's why, if you guys saw my video that I did on the nodes, I talked about the signs in pairs, because I think that, you know, Pisces rising can be very similar to Virgo rising. You can see with the eclipses that it can bring similar situations. It doesn't always mean loss or gain. I think for you, this is going to be more about, you know, relationships. You know, that's going to be more when you start to see some Mercury stuff. So, you know, Jupiter trining your Mercury all year, you're going to see expansion in career, expansion in money. Maybe Virgo season and Capricorn season, you're going to see more action in regards to relationships, because it's going to activate these trines. But Neptune is sitting on your ascendant, and it's retrograding back over your ascendant. So there can be a lot of like, what's going on? Where am I going? I'm just kind of floating, right? Where is my significant other? How long do I have to be alone? That kind of stuff, because it's on an angle right now, and it's still in a square to Venus. When you start to see better aspects like Neptune leaving your ascendant, and when you start to see Jupiter coming back into a trine with your Mercury, spring of next year, I could see more going on. I don't think you're going to have to wait that long, because I will say that the solar eclipse that's coming in your 7th house is going to be setting you up for relationship opportunity. This will be in mid-October, likely very suddenly, very unexpectedly, because it's conjunct Uranus. And it might be a love with somebody who is foreign or something kind of private or very spiritual. It may feel otherworldly, right? So that can be kicking off opportunity for relationships from October of this year until spring of next. Business-wise, I kind of feel inclined to tell you, like, I mean, you know, you're like a powerhouse. You have all these planets in the 10th house. The nodes are coming into a square with all these 10th house placements, which means that there's more focus in putting yourself out there in groups, socially, out in the world. So that way you can really bring attention to yourself and other people can see you. Because you have your 7th house Lord in the 10th, it means that when you're on the up and up with your career, there's a lot of visibility and you're going and you're having meetings and connecting with people and expanding in terms of your professional goals. That's when relationships happen. Obviously, Mercury square Pluto, right? There's always like fixation on relationships and fixation on career, and they seem to kind of be tugging at each other. And what you may notice as the South Node goes through Libra is a sense of being like the relationships that work are the ones that come with ease. They don't represent a sense of heaviness or like too much work or responsibility. It just clicks. And people who are willing to kind of work with you and kind of mediate. I do think you may have some really unexpected things happen with the South Node, Uranus connection and that eclipse where people come out of the blue and maybe you're having dreams you're going to meet somebody and then you do. And until we get Saturn and Neptune out of a square with your Venus, which is going to be a 2-year process, one bit of advice I would give you was just try to see clearly and see people for who and what they are. Because eclipse is in your 7th house, South Node coming into conjunction with Pluto, it could be still 2 years of engaging with people and like seeing one thing and then realizing it's something else. And that's just part of the Venus-Neptune square. And then when Saturn shows up, it's being like, no, I have more clarity about where, you know, the direction of my art, creativity, relationships are kind of going, and then you have better boundaries. Obviously, like relationships is also going to be a combination of your progressions. So I would look at that, but knowing what I know about your eclipses, we got one on Uranus in the 7th house shaking things up. We've got another one in opposition here. So the sun is going to be in opposition to Pluto, and you're going to have an eclipse on your Pluto. So both of those eclipses are highlighting your 7th house, which can be very intense, very sexual, very emotional. And then one more in opposition to Uranus. It seems like there's going to be a bit of a cat and mouse game and a back and forth for the next year. And it's really going to get initiated right around the time of the fall this year. And then we have the nodes coming into a square with your sun and your Jupiter, which can be a time when you're like, I'm really pushing for, you know, expansion in my career and I want people to see me. And that may actually be the trigger that actually brings people in. And there could potentially be better commitment. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about Saturn and Neptune square Mercury, Saturn and Neptune square Venus, and the South Node going through your 7th house. People who stay cannot be toxic. They need to be direct. They need to be honest, and keep putting your best foot forward when it comes to your professional life, because number one, we know you're going to be successful with that, right? Venus on the midheaven, North Node, Jupiter, and the sun in the 10th house. Like, that's big boss energy. It's just a matter of being like, okay, outside of work, what am I doing for myself? And that's what the North Node in Aries is trying to get you to figure out, and also be reinvesting that energy. I think more so into resources and better self-esteem and kind of building yourself up, right? But I want to hear what happens with those eclipses in October and also April, because those are going to be times where your personal planets get triggered, and I definitely think there's some relationship stuff that's going to be happening. But you know the story of relationships. With Pluto and Uranus in the 7th house, it's like people come and go, and it's very intense and very passionate, and then periods of also having to take space from people, right? So I think the key here is finding partners who are going to encourage your growth when it comes to your professional life, and not somebody who's getting in the way or causing strife, and feeling okay calling the shots. So somebody who's going to be a little bit more Libran, kind of, okay, yep, what do you need? How can I help you? Who's more attentive to some of your needs. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Katie. All right, so we've got Leah? Leah? Am I saying this correctly? 10/5/1980, 11:25 p.m., and that was in Selma. So you're Cancer rising, Sun in Libra, Moon in Virgo. Those of you guys who are still watching, if you guys can give me a thumbs up and like the stream before we finish, I would really appreciate it. All right, so we've got you here asking general reading, how are things looking for this new moon? Thanks, Katie. All right, well, it's in your sign, so that's a good start. Let's pull up the right lunation. Here we go. So we've got this new moon on your ascendant within your first house. There she is. Life has been challenging. It seems all it is to life the last few years. I'm just trying to have some insight. Love isn't happening. Was laid off on the 5th. My landlord is in hiding. Whoa. Okay, so new moon in the first house, setting intentions for the self, first and foremost. This is a new moon also that is going to be in a square to your Pluto, so themes revolving around emotions and things revolving around change with you and also your home and the pressure regarding like home and domestic stuff and maybe even landlords can come up. You're also going to see the sun that is going to be opposing Pluto. So it does seem like a bit of a pressure cooker with some things that are changing at home. But that's going to get picked up more in mid-October. So you still have an eclipse in mid-October that'll be on Pluto. And that can prompt some sudden kind of, oh my God, something is changing, some kind of shift at home, which you may become aware of. And then as Saturn starts opposing your moon, you might decide to make some changes in regards to where you're living next year. Okay. But the new moon is in a trine to Neptune. And Neptune's at the top part of your chart. So this is about how you are committing more so to yourself and setting the stage for your goals, for the vision that you're holding for future career stuff. So I think this is like a really strong manifestational period for you. I feel like the sextile also to Uranus is about, you know, changing your goals and also relationships with other people and like wanting to align yourself and collaborate with people socially or professionally who are going to help bring you support. I keep telling all my Cancer risings, like Pluto is, you know, getting squared right now. So it's about clearing out people who are vampires and people who are kind of leeching off of you and energy drains and negative. It's all about focusing on your career and the people who are going to help build you up. Now, I do think change is on, you know, the horizon when it comes to your home life. I think South Node going into the 4th house, you'll see at some point over the next 18 months you're going to move. The eclipses might prompt that, especially in October and in the spring of next year. And I think that the positive is that, you know, between a trine that you're going to have to your 10th house and a Mercury and a Venus retrograde that are going to be impacting your resources and also your home. Mercury's going to retrograde over your moon. You may contemplate, well, can I move? Does it make sense to move? If not, you know, what am I doing to kind of get my resources straight? And if you've been laid off and you haven't been working, then the retrograde Venus that's going to take place from, you know, July until September can bring a reversal of your financial situation. It can suddenly start bringing money in, especially as it's going to be making squares to Jupiter, Uranus. So I feel like there can be some insight you get from friends or other people that are like, let me connect you to someone, you know, or I found somebody who's hiring, or companies might be potentially hiring, which could bring you more money, especially as Venus is sitting on your North Node at 19. So that makes me feel like I pay attention to these dates. August 14th. And then when it comes back, September 11th through the 16th. Those are good, like, financial transits, making changes, bringing more money in, being able to work. And everything's trining your North Node. So you're going to be going back to work for sure. There might be a sense of like adjusting to the new schedule and making sure you like it come December, but I think you'll take something to get back in the swing of things, and you can figure out in December if it's what's right for you and if you're going to stay. You have bigger fish to fry right now with some of this drama at work, drama at home. Pay attention to September and October, because it does make me feel like you're going to have to either clear something out, or there's something going on with your landlord, or there's something going on where you're like needing support of family. And yes, I know, I can see that there has been a number of things that have kind of gone on because you've had Saturn on your south node and your Uranus opposition, where you have felt like some things are out of your control. But where you're clearing emotions and clearing house, what you have to gain is a lot of growth in your professional life, and you may be willing to pick up, move, relocate, make changes if and when the right kind of job shows up and lands in your lap. It's just a matter of making the decision to kind of cut out people who are toxic or drama, which unfortunately is a huge theme for Cancer risings right now. I would be doing lots of like abundance work with Venus retrograde in the second house. I would be, really being in like the manifestation and abundance mindset. Second house can be about what you possess, and you might feel like you're going to be more generous and you're going to pay things forward. So you may potentially, gift things or give things away to people. That can also help bring in more, ideal money karma. You may give sweets away. You may bake things for people. You might give away old like luxury items and things that you have. You might sell it if you really need the cash, and you can make some money from that as well. But I think that the retrograde is really giving you the opportunity to reconnect with what you truly want and what you truly value, and kind of get that working in order so you can bring some more money in. So I'd use the new moon to manifest, basically, in a roundabout way. And what you're going to hear for Libras is, Saturn and Neptune being in Pisces is like, oh, your career and your routine and this, that, and the other. You're kind of getting hit with Neptune on the midheaven. Right now it's about dreaming for that perfect and manifesting that perfect position. And then as Saturn comes in over the next year or two, it's going to really kind of iron it out and solidify it. So I wonder if it's a matter of like going and doing something that's going to be more creative, or something that's more free flowing, or something that's going to allow you to kind of tap into your intuition, that's possibly going to give you more fulfillment, right? Very similar to Gemini risings. Gemini risings, whole sign, are having this, and they're like, where am I going? What am I doing? So Neptune can be really challenging when you have it on the midheaven, right? Sending you lots of good money vibes. That can be really good with that retrograde over your north node, bringing it in and bringing in generous people. Hopefully that's helpful. I got Wendy, then Victoria, Stephanie, and Siva. Wendy, what's up? How are you? You're coming into your birthday time soon, no? Yes, you are. You just had it. Happy belated, Wendy. Thanks, BE. I appreciate it. It's a long one. So let's see what Wendy says. Love and career, aka monies. Well, I mean, it is money time. You have the sun going through your second house, so that's a focus. But that new moon is going to be setting the stage for manifestation and abundance. New moon in your second house. Trine Neptune in your 10th house. It's about envisioning. It's coming to me. The work is coming to me. Clients are coming to me. Everything is falling into place. And it's about emotional security, right? So much of being a Gemini rising is like how your finances affect your emotions. And obviously when you have your north node, when you have your sun in the second house, it's about what you possess, right? Home, security, resources. So what's nice is that the sun's been going through your second house and it's been trining, and you're getting trines to Saturn, your natal Saturn, and finally Neptune. So there is like a sense of envisioning it and then it manifesting. Sextiles to Uranus is also about listening to your intuition, your vision, your dreams. There's certain things that you're like having gut hits about, that you're like, I feel like I need to do this, or I need to change that. I think also for Cancers in general, right, the Venus retrograde is second to your sun. So in your case, the Venus retrograde is actually going to start right conjunct your IC, and it's going to retrograde through your third house, hitting your Mercury, which is your chart ruler. So it's about making changes, renegotiating something, rethinking something, reconnecting. Then it's going to hit your natal Venus. Okay, so you need to go back and think about what happened in 2015 in the summer, and also what happened in, 2007 in the summer, because there's going to be some similarities. I think of like Venus retrograde as like unexpected changes that might go on with gadgets, vehicles, communication. I wouldn't be moving or buying anything with these transits. I'd be very careful. You may reconnect with like an old relative or, you know, a friend. And it can be good being like, yeah, let's reconnect. Let's meet somewhere. Let's go on a road trip, you know? And women can play a role in the Venus retrograde. So there can be a sense of you saying, okay, you know, I'll meet you there. And then you plan a trip and then they're like, they don't show up. And you're like, oh, well, I just spent money on this. Like, what am I doing? So be mindful of, yeah, financial stuff. I would say that to Cancers in general. But being that you have Saturn that's just going to continue to keep coming into a trine with your sun, and that Jupiter and Uranus are still sextile your sun, and now we've got Mars trining your moon, Jupiter trining your moon, like finances are stable here. You're going to see things get even better over the next 2 years, you know, and you're getting ready to come into your second Saturn's return next year. So you're really ready for that like major like boss up period. Saturn does well in the 10th house. In Pisces, though, it's about making your dreams a reality. So there's like a substantial building period from December through May. I ended up with stage 4 Cancer. I pray that's not repeating. Okay. So health is more Mars. So I'm not really seeing any Mars aspects, not right now. So I think you're good in that sense. And we're not seeing any squares to Neptune. You're good in that sense. So no, not right now. Uranus is past your opposition to Neptune. Jupiter might oppose Neptune, but that's going to be next year. So I'm not really seeing that. I think with Saturn trine your sun, you're good. Obviously, you know, Neptune in the 6th house, especially retrograde, there can be unexpected health situations that can happen in your life that you don't see coming. And it can be relating to Cancer, which is Scorpio, reproductive issues, hormonal issues. It's not unusual when I see oppositions in the the second and the 8th house too. Life or death matters. So yeah, different aspects this time around. It's going to be a lot easier, I think, for you to navigate. Not that the mutable signs aren't going to get hit by it, but because the retrograde is going to be in fixed signs, it's not as heavy for mutables or for cardinal signs. So it's going to be easier, but it's going over your natal Venus and your Mercury. So I'm watching more for like, are people going back on agreements or on contracts? You know, make sure you have contracts and everything, you know, written down. I think that's what's best. And I like the Mercury retrograde and the Venus retrograde at the same time, because you might go, I want to get out of the house. I want to go and do something. Like I would rather kind of be in another place. So you might be feeling like you're more open to exploring and maybe traveling and taking some time off. And it might help you also like reevaluate what you want to be doing with your home and your work situation. It takes a strong Jupiter transit for relationship stuff to kind of set up. And so Jupiter is still in a trine with your sun this year. Excuse me, it's in a sextile with your sun and a trine to your moon. So that's more like if relationships come in, it's kind of like private on the DL. You're being more like conscious of like who's knowing who you're with and what you're doing. And you want to feel it out before you make a more serious commitment, which is nice. I mean, you got Jupiter square Saturn. So I think that maybe you're used to like other people saying, hey, we're going to keep this on the back burner, keep this between us. But now the tide is kind of turning and you're going to realize like I can have things private and like keep it and preserve it. But it needs to be more so on my terms. And learning that maybe you're not mixing business and pleasure. Like you're not mixing that with people who you're maybe, you know, working with or collaborating with, because that's a theme, because you've got Jupiter in a mutable square. It is possible also partners, you know, come to you in private and they're trying to kind of get you to kind of reconnect before you close the door, but that's more so like next year. But for the time being, since you're the one who's always asking me about cosmetic related things, please be careful with hair and cosmetic changes, because you have natal Venus in Leo and Venus is going to retrograde there. Also, like I said, moving, making changes with gadgets, cars, these are other things you can have some problems with. The 3rd house is also the hands and the shoulders. And so because you have Mercury, which is the body, and Venus, which relates to like what's not seen, you could potentially have some like situation where, you know, I don't want to say this, but you could have an injury to your hand because you weren't looking, you know, and you kind of missed something. So be mindful of like hands and fingers and shoulders, because there can be some health related stuff that can come up there. Oh, bought a kayak for my birthday yesterday to take day trips. Yes. Okay, cool. Okay, with private relationships on my term. And then relationships can become more visible when Jupiter is coming into your first house more so next year. But definitely like new opportunities for romance with eclipses in the fall. And I do see a reevaluation of a relationship that's going to take place in mid-December. And that might be about people coming back to you and you deciding whether or not you're going to let them in, right? Yes, not doing anything until after September 15th. Yeah, and keep in mind, Venus will be in a more superior position in the skies around November 8th. So when Venus is back in the sign of Libra, much better. But yeah, if you want to wait just until after the Venus retrograde, you can do that as well. Look forward to this new moon, I think, and just like really reinvesting yourself emotionally into bringing in what it is you want. And you're going to see that there's going to be lots of opportunity for money to be coming in this next year with Jupiter trine your moon. But I think you're very humble and you're going to be very private about it. And you're going to be somebody who's just kind of like, okay, I'm counting my blessings. I'm not going to be bragging. Like I don't need everybody knowing what's going on within my business. And you're going to realize that, manifesting and meditating and like sitting and visualizing things is probably the number one thing that's going to bring you some of your most physical abundance over the next year or two with Jupiter and Uranus sextile your sun. Get ready for that Saturn return, but that's not going to be for a while. Hopefully that's helpful for you. We've got Victoria, Stephanie, and Siva. Let's pull up Victoria. Thanks, Wendy. Thanks for your support. All right, Victoria, hopefully you have connection. There she is. She says, my solar return chart lit. Health is good, getting much better. I'm confident, good choices. North node is on your Mars now, soon to be Mercury, south node on my Pluto. I feel like I'm coming from my power. Breathe, north node is coming for sun. Thanks, Wendy. You take care. All right, so you got some stuff going on here, huh? You're really channeling all that Aries energy now. All the Aries placements are waking up. Is there anybody else who's got like an Aries sun, moon, or rising that's like feeling it? My moon's in Aries, so I'm definitely looking forward to what happens at the end of the year. I'm probably going to be known for telling some people off. I don't know. We'll see. All right, so North Node's coming into conjunction with your Mars, and you have Mars in Taurus, which is slow and steady, things kind of like revving up. And then you're going to feel that definitive shift when it goes into Aries and it hits your Mercury, which is your chart ruler. So you're going to be like teaching, traveling, transforming like crazy. Really good time for publishing, really good time for also like winning legal related things. Connecting with superiors, talking to people about law and your belief system and all of that good stuff. And then boom, the North Node is going to move into your 8th house. So you have until about mid-September, and then changes the name of the game. And then it's going to be about personal change and transformation and bringing in more from other people. You're also going to be seeing, Pluto is going retrograde in a square with Pluto, and Pluto squaring the node. So this is about having big breakthroughs in regards to your personal business. This can also be matters of the heart and things that regard like your love life. And Pluto square Pluto, you're in the final moments of having that breakthrough. I think when it comes to figuring out maybe what you love and what you value. The South Node Pluto is kind of a trip. Like I had that transit in this last year, and that's like a moment where you're just kind of like, okay, I'm ready to take out the trash. Like I'm done with some of this stuff. And you might notice that it's about how you think about or communicate your value, money, resources, like self-esteem related stuff. Also, knowing that the North Node is going to conjunct your chart ruler is like a really, really prominent time for you when it comes to like getting recognition out in the world for what you're saying, what you're publishing, what you're believing. So I'm glad to hear that You're applying for jobs. You're focusing on also, releasing like books. I mean, this is wonderful, especially because the 9th house can be other languages. I do think that, relationships can feel like it's at a bit of like a pivotal turning point though, because Pluto square Pluto can be about relationships being on the verge of going one way or the other. But then when the North and the South node square Pluto and Saturn is retrograde, I'd be paying attention to about mid-July. Well, I guess that's now. But when Saturn opposes Mars and when the nodes square Pluto, I'm wondering if this is going to be a turning point where you may realize that there is a need to rest and reflect and recuperate. If you're feeling like, you guys are kind of at a breaking point, or one of the two of you guys needs a break. Oh, I'm looking at your comments now. What did I just do? Oh, there we go. My current boyfriend is on the verge of breaking up with me. Yeah, there you go. And when the North and the South node square the moon, you're also going to be hearing from partners that they're going to be saying, what do you want? What are you hoping to achieve? Where is this going? So this is only the beginning of that. So know that you're going to see more of this that's going to come through, I think, in December with the nodes square your moon and Saturn on your descendant. With Saturn retrograde, this is now the effects of reevaluating relationships as well. So round about the time Saturn goes direct, there can be an opportunity for you to have a breakthrough in regards to relationships. So if it's not happening now, you're going to see October, oh my goodness, that eclipse that's going to be here squaring your moon. It's going to be like people saying to you, what do you want? What are you hoping to achieve in relationships? Are you ready to really expand? Are you ready to grow? And I know that Capricorn moon is like business consistency, what I'm producing, what I'm putting out into the world, and has very, very high standards. Uranus is also going to be retrograding back into conjunction with your Venus. So you do need a little bit more freedom when it comes to relationships right now. So it's just like, there's something like this going on that's basically saying like you both want freedom, but you also know that time is winding down and people are going to start expecting more commitment from you. Yes, my husband Nicola told me in details. He's not here yet. I need my husband. Nicola told me about him. Should I just look for those details? I would say I've had readings with Nicola, God rest his soul. Man, for selfish reasons, I wish he were still around because I have so many questions about remedies. But I think about the readings that I've had with him, and he died a week before I was supposed to have a session with him. So I think I'm still kind of sour because I'm like, why? And I know so many people feel like that because he was so good at what he did. Anyway, that's terrible for me to say that. But he was very specific with me when he gave me the specific details relating to the degrees and the sign and how he described my future husband. And he was like, he will have these traits and he will have these signs and this is how you will meet him. And he was bang on about everything. So I'm never going to say don't listen to whatever Nicola told you, because I have found his predictions have been eerily accurate. My interpretation for you is because you have Pisces descendant and it's at a 1, it'll be something that can start pretty quickly. Obviously that's ruled by Jupiter or Neptune, and you got that in your 4th house, so they can be somebody who's a foreigner or culturally diverse. It can also be somebody who shows up and wants to help liberate you out of a living situation, or they're trying to say like, let's move in together, or let's make a change very quickly, or relocate. And also, obviously, Jupiter at a 10 is somebody who's going to want to help encourage you to expand what it means to develop house and home, because you have South Node, Neptune, Uranus. There's like a sense of kind of wandering a little bit, being a little nomadic, and that person will come in and be like, yeah, let's kind of either go to a foreign country or let's kind of put down roots. I'm sure he told you very specific things. I mean, Juno at 11 too does indicate somebody who might be a friend. It might be unusual. It might be somebody who's into astrology and metaphysics, especially with Jupiter conjunct Uranus. They have to have a respect for that stuff. So I would listen to what he said, knowing that Saturn's going to come into conjunction with Juno. And you're also going to see Jupiter, your traditional 7th house lord, coming into conjunction with Venus. So the more that you're out and about, traveling, expanding, learning, publishing, you're going to connect with someone. You may also want to really follow these Jupiter transits. I think Jupiter coming into conjunction with Uranus and Venus next year may also be a turning point and they're going to start to sextile Saturn. So next spring is really looking like it. And if you feel like you need to cut somebody loose with Saturn and Mars in opposition, don't be surprised. You know, that Venus retrograde is going to kick in and you're going to be like, I just need some space, give me some space. And you might feel like it's a slow kind of burn before finally ripping off the Band-Aid over the next couple months. Hopefully that's helpful. It's always good hearing from you. We've got Stephanie. Let's see. And then you're next, Siva. All right, so Miss Todman, what's going on? Cancer, Sun, Libra rising, Moon in Pisces. Can you please give me some insight on these strikes? My job was pushed back because of the first one, and now with the Sag strike, I'm not sure what will happen, if I'll be able to get a job soon. Good question. This is some really interesting astrology here. It's quite literal for you. So you are a Venus ruled chart, and Venus is getting ready to go retrograde in the 11th house, which is groups, organizations, and associations, other people. Leo can be about creatives and actors. So as Venus goes retrograde, there is a slowing down when it comes to connecting with other people. And then the squares to Jupiter and Uranus is how that affects your bottom line and making money. So the truth is that until you see a really strong Mars transit, which you're going to have, you're going to see Saturn is going to go retrograde and it's going to trine Mars. It is going to likely open up and there is going to be a solution. I thought that the Venus retrograde in Leo was going to be some kind of hang up in Hollywood or with creatives or younger people, and the squares to Uranus was going to be like union related issues and like rights and creative rights or money. So you're going to see a bit of a back and forth. Venus will start the retrograde on the 22nd. You know, she's going to square off with Uranus. So I do think there's going to be negotiations going clear until September. And likely when Venus comes back into a square with Jupiter and Uranus, the changes are being made, I think, closer to mid to the second half of September. At that point in time, you're also seeing Saturn going retrograde, coming into a trine with Mars. So it looks like money is kind of coming back on track. And perhaps you're going to be able to get back to work, I would say, by the second half of September. So it could take that long. The good news is, though, is that when Mars goes into Scorpio in your second house, you're making money in October and you're seeing trines both to Saturn as well as your natal Saturn, your natal Mars and Sun. So could be the second half of September, to be honest with you. And then you're feeling like you're back on the up and up with things financially in October. Part of this is also the Venus retrograde is going retrograde over your natal Venus. Okay, at a 22, which is about work and career. And you're going to see Uranus is squaring your natal Venus. So it's like basically saying other people holding it up, keeping you from being able to work. It's affecting your resources. And then you got Saturn going retrograde in your whole sign 6. So you're kind of getting it from all different angles. I think the question here is with Saturn going retrograde over your moon is like, what are you doing for you? Right? Although it feels like a bit of a bummer, you're being held back from working. The moon rules your 10th house. The question is how can you make lemonade? What else can you be doing with this time? What other creative projects can you be working on? How can you be going back and kind of fine-tuning some of your skills in preparation for what's coming? And are you finding yourself with the Venus retrograde reconnecting with groups of people and getting involved with this potential renegotiation? How are you potentially connecting with these unions or connecting with these people who might be striking? And where can you be talking to other people and trying to find out, okay, you know, what are we renegotiating? What's the term? How can we get back into it? You will get back into work, don't worry. When Saturn goes direct, when planets go into Scorpio, you'll be working. But I think really it's about pushing this and being like, okay, like they're going to be standing up and having this strike because they want to ensure that they're being respected or that they're getting paid accordingly. And like, that's also going to keep me in business. So while it seems annoying, and then Mars in opposition to Saturn, while it seems annoying, I look at this and I go, you know, it's giving you the opportunity to really focus on fine-tuning some skills that are going to be beneficial for you in the long run. Try to make the best of it. And know that with Jupiter and Uranus in your 8th house, like generally there is some kind of support that comes through. And I feel like when Mars comes into a trine with Jupiter around the 31st of July, and then when Mars comes into a trine with Uranus, which is going to be around the 15th of August, that may be some money-making opportunities. That might be some guardian angel type vibes where just like money comes out of nowhere that can be like more supporting for you and people who are kind of wanting to help you. And it might get you through until you can get closer to the second half of September, where I do think you're going to be working again. But unfortunately, Saturn on your 10th house ruler, Saturn connected to the 6th house, Saturn opposed your money house. It's coming from all angles. This is meant to be because I think that you're supposed to be working on other things right now. And even for Libra risings, I've talked to a lot of Libra risings who like work independently or like they're not connected to this. Everybody is hitting a roadblock right now and being like, there's this thing going on, whether it's personal resistance or something out of your control that's holding you back. Keep in mind that Mars is going through your 6th house, your 12th house, which is about rest and recuperation and what you're working on behind the scenes, right? I reached out to some people. We're trying to get work for unscripted shows. Well, I think with these trines, you might actually drum up some business and find that it's something that'll kind of get you through. But Saturn wants you to commit more seriously to what you're building for yourself creatively in the long term. And by spring of next year, I think you're going to be in a completely different either working environment or schedule anyway, right? So around about the time you have that third Venus return, I think that things are going to get remedied. And you might find out that some of the changes that have happened are going to be so beneficial for you in the long run that you're going to be glad that this went down, because there's going to be a whole new set of agreements that are going to have to basically take effect for people to be able to continue in the industry moving forward. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Sending you lots of good vibes. Set intentions with that new moon, okay? New moon in your 10th house is setting intention goals in regards to career-related things. What's up, Marlena? People who are popping in, thank you for joining. This is the end of the reading. We're on the last one. Is Siva here? You're welcome, Todman. Good luck. Siva. Another Libra rising. I hope you're doing well. You've got that new moon. Oh, you know what? Hold on a second. I think this is the wrong Siva. Hold on. Let's see. Is it? There we go. Is this correct? Yeah. Wrong Siva, sorry. Virgo rising, sun in Cancer, and your moon is in Leo. Siva, do you have a particular question for me? If you don't, then I'm going to talk to you about this new moon, which is coming up here soon, pretty close to your sun. For my husband, okay. What question do you have? Is this, this isn't their chart, is it? So you want this chart? No, that's your son. It's a family affair. I have everyone. What was your husband's first name again? His work contract ended suddenly. Okay, can you send me his info, because this is the info I have for you. Or remind me his first name, because I do believe I have him here. Is it this one? September, yeah, maybe it was that one. What's the date? I think this is yours. Okay, so it was this one. I was right. My bad. Okay. Work contract ending suddenly. All right, so the career is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is currently in Leo. And we have got squares going on to Jupiter and Uranus. So how it's putting the pressure on a partner and their resources. Mercury is not going to go retrograde. We're going to see some of those squares come through over the next week or two. There is a new moon coming in the 10th house, so it's great for setting intentions. Right around his birthday. It's on the cusp, but it's pretty close. So we need a positive Mercury transit in order for there to be new work to be done. And it looks like Sun's going to conjunct Mercury, so that can bring opportunity for that around August 2nd. And then you're going to see Venus retrograde in the 11th, so it's about groups and associations. Was it multiple people who got laid off with their contracts, or was it just him? Because this is kind of similar to like Libra rising. It's like, oh, work ended, now what do we do? The square's to Uranus. But the truth is like then Mars is going to square his midheaven opposed Neptune. So there is a little bit of like, what direction am I going in? If this is ending, what am I doing? And it's trying to get him to think more creatively about how he can drum up resources. Now, Mercury is going to go retrograde. So there can be a sense of reevaluating in the end of August what direction he's going in. It's going to come into a trine with Uranus. And it's also going to trine Jupiter. So I feel like even though there's like a lot of mixing up, by the end of August going into September, there can be either a new position that comes up. Super common. We're going to see a lot of this, especially over the next couple months, a lot of like layoffs, unfortunately. But looking at this, there is a lot of possible growth here. You know, Mars going into Libra can be good for building resources because it's connected to his second. But to me, the summer feels like it's filled with choices. It's like, does he do this or does he do that, right? Trying to study to get certifications. That's not a bad move, actually. I mean, a lot of Virgo risings, because Jupiter and Uranus are in the whole sign 9th, they're realizing like, oh, I can do some kind of training and I can qualify, or I can take a job that's going to require me to train. I mean, I think that's good. And he may benefit from looking at, you know, getting hired by companies that might be international because there's so much energy in his 12th house. But he's not having the stereotypical harsh aspects to his Mercury that I would typically see with the ending of a job. What's really happening is Jupiter square Jupiter that's saying, okay, go and do the training, connect with people in other places, you can expand your career. And because Jupiter represents partners, partners are pushing him to go and like really apply his talent and figure out something new. And likely what you're going to see is once we start having trines to his Mercury, so that'll be here by mid-November. In theory, I would think that financially things are kind of improving, especially with eclipses in the 8th house. He might find that this seems scary now, but it's like prompting him to go and do some training or look for working for a new company, and it might end up actually bringing him more money and better benefits in the long run, in my opinion. Also, you know, the nodes are getting ready to square, you know, so the North and the South node are about to square his sun, which is like, he's going to look at this and go, okay, I'm being tested. How do I have faith? How do I move through this? What am I learning? Let me reevaluate and like really focus on my vision. And you're also going to hear for Cancers, oh, big time to make changes in your career, showing up and taking action. Well, it's in his 8th house, which means if he's been delaying making some professional changes, now this is coming as an opportunity to really push him into, you know, physically seeing the change. It's so fun because he's got Jupiter, Mars, and Venus all in the 10th house, so he doesn't realize it, but he has a lot of potential here, like a lot, especially Sun trine Saturn, and a lot of it comes from support, right? 7th house is the spouse, it's counselors, astrologers, therapists, people who are saying like, you can do it, just get out there, you know, go and connect with the groups of people that you need to connect with, get outside of your comfort zone, and you're going to see that you're going to be able to make these shifts. But yeah, Cancer is really feeling it, right? This is the final act also of Pluto retrograde in opposition to his sun. So being faced with major changes on the home front and major changes on the career front, I think it's more about where is this giving him the opportunity to reevaluate how can we make changes to live where we want to live, and am I looking for a job that's going to help me align with that? That's also part of this, right? But by the time he's getting out of like the Mars in opposition to Saturn and the Mercury retrograde, and he gets back into the swing of feeling like more solid financially, especially in October, he's going to look around and go, I think this was actually for the best, because it helps him get other things in order and make some of the changes with the direction that he's going with his career, and likely eventually making more money. You'll see that with the eclipses in the 8th house. Sending you guys lots of love. I appreciate it. Thanks for checking in. I have like lots of like families where I read all of the different charts, so I never quite know exactly who's because sometimes I have so many. That was a long one, so thank you guys for those of you guys who stayed with me. I appreciate it. Just as a reminder, it looks like I did not get, who did I not get? Charmaine? Okay, so Charmaine, if you're watching this and you're like, where is my reading? I didn't have your information. I also did not have your birthday or your question or anything. So I will refund that, and hopefully I can catch you on another live. We're here every Friday, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Next week is going to be tarot. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Please catch me on Sunday for astro weather. We're going to talk about the Venus retrograde. If you guys like my content, make sure you subscribe so you can see more of it. Go and check out my website if you want to book a personal reading with me, or you want to check out my new intention candle line, my astro calendars, my courses, all the things that we create to be able to keep doing this thing here on the internet. That's all from me. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend, and I will see all of you very soon. Take care.